I want to show you that, guys, this. Good morning, everybody. Welcome into this Sunday bonus stream with your buddy, your pal, your friend, Mike from PA. I want to get you started with, I want to show you this. Happy morning, Sunday morning. Good morning, Sunday morning, yeah. I want to show you this. This is Lula right before he went to prison.
Não adiantam tentar evitar que eu ande por esse país, porque tem milhões e milhões de Lula, de Bolo, de Manuela, de Dilma Rousseff para andar por mim. Não adianta tentar acabar, sabe, com as minhas ideias. Elas já estão pairando no ar e não tem como prendê-las. Não adianta tentar parar o meu sonho, porque quando eu parar de sonhar, eu sonharei pela cabeça de vocês e pelo dono de vocês. Não adianta achar que tudo vai parar o dia que o Lula tiver infarte. É bobagem, porque o meu coração baterá pelo coração de vocês, e são milhões de corações. Os poderosos podem matar uma, duas ou três rosas, mas jamais conseguirão deter a chegada da primavera, e a nossa luta é em busca da primavera.
This was right before the Lava Jato, which was a program cooked up by Obama's State Department to put Lula in prison on fake corruption charges so that they could help the far-right Bolsonaro take power in Brazil. And Lula went to prison with his head held high. This is what happened right before he turned himself in, even though he knew that the charges were totally fabricated. All right, everybody, welcome on in to the Central Committee stream. How's everybody doing? I like to have a political stream on Sunday when I'm puttering around the house and chilling and thinking and reading, maybe playing some video games, chilling with my folks, my peeps. And I saw I wasn't going to have a political stream this afternoon, and I was like, oh, well, I guess I'll just do one. And like the reality that we have right now is that we're in a crisis, and it's a crisis of bravery. That's the crisis we're in. We're in the crisis of courage. That's the crisis. We have a crisis of conviction. We have a crisis of care. Kind of sucks how you're right about everything and predicted all this. I mean, who cares, right? It only matters if I can turn my vision into a vehicle for change and a crisis of organization. Oh, absolutely. Let's say tomorrow that the stock market crashes and the economy goes into a deep depression. Who will lead? Let's say everything that we desire happened tomorrow. There was a mass uprising to try to stop the genocide in Gaza, or a mass uprising to stop war abroad, or the destruction of trans people, or the deportation of millions of Americans. What if everything that you wanted to happen happened? Who would lead? Where would it go? Where would the energy go? Where would it be used? What would it achieve? The main reason I wanted to stream today is I saw something on Twitter. It was a gathering of Third Way. If you don't know what Third Way is, it's basically the corporate centrist Democrat think tank that has been in charge of the Democratic Party since basically 1994. You could argue that it was 1990 or 1988, or maybe even earlier. And they have put out their, and it's extremely influential in Washington, D.C. I would say it's probably the most influential Democratic think tank. They're called Third Way because there's the left way, there's the right way, and we need to come up with a third way. Now, what's very ironic or interesting about that is that the third way is also how fascists have described their politics, by the way. Just so you understand that the third way is centrist Democrats in America or fascism. It's called the third position when you're talking about fascism. They call it the third way if you're a centrist Democrat. How can we be coalescing the left, and how can we, as dumb plebs, help? Well, the first thing we need to do is we need to get smarter. And I think one of the things that's happening is that a lot of left liberals are exposing their utter fecklessness and their cowardice and their lack of imagination and their worthlessness. I mean, like, I don't know what else to say. It's not just mainstream corporate Dems. It's left liberals, right? It is left liberals. I don't know what else to say. Have I seen AOC on NPR? I think we can watch that in a bit. And here's what I saw that made me want to stream today. This was the meeting. Those gathered then laid out 20 solutions for how Democrats can regain working class trust and reconnect with them culturally. The party should, quote, embrace patriotism, community, and traditional American imagery. Democrats should ban far-left candidate questionnaires and refuse to participate in forums that create ideological purity tests, and move away from the dominance of small-dollar donors whose preferences may not align with the broader electorate. They should push back against far-left staffers and groups that exert a disproportionate influence on policy and messaging. And candidates should get out of elite circles and into real communities, e.g. tailgates, gun shows, local restaurants, churches. And the party needs to own the failures of democratic governance in large cities and commit to improving local government. The third way comeback retreat. Now, here's kind of my feeling on this. I think that if there's the most dangerous people in the world are in the third way think tank. I think that these people, like, we're at a hinge point in history. All right. And I would say that if there is a group of people that are going to commit, this is extinction level threat to the human race. This isn't just like committing a murder of one person. This is committing a murder of countless trillions of people that might have lived. I want you to understand that the level of evil that is concentrated in this group has never been matched in human history. Heap up all the deaths in every genocide and every mass killing and every war, and it will hardly be seeable compared to the level of threat that these people represent to the future. If people follow this policy, it's unlikely the human race can survive as an organized society in the future. That's the level of threat. And this is not hyperbolic. I mean every word I'm saying. These people are a complete threat. And it's not even like at a point where you can debate them anymore. Okay? What they desire to do is to create a Democratic Party rump party of the plutocratic billionaire that serves as the Washington Generals, a controlled opposition party of the billionaires that denies and rejects democratic accountability in any form, tailors itself as basically what amounts to a marketing department for billionaires. This, if they were to succeed in their goals, the Democratic Party would basically cease to function as a political party. And that would leave the Republican Party as the only actual party in America. This is the path to a one-party state, a one-party right-wing dictatorship. These are the people, these are the collaborators. By the way, these people are more of a threat than even the Republicans, because the Republicans, everybody knows what they are, okay? Well, you know what you're going to get with the Republicans, all right? Say what you will about Donald Trump. He's doing what he says he's going to do. It's not confusing. He's doing exactly what he said he was going to do, and he's doing it to the maximum possible degree. No one should be surprised by what he's doing. If anything, I'm surprised he's keeping so many promises. I thought the stuff about NATO was just bluster and bullshit, but it actually looks like they might pursue a more isolationist foreign policy. I thought that was crap because of the structure of the military-industrial complex, and it may borne out to be crap. I mean, I'll believe it when I see it. But they've at least postured. They've at least threatened. They've at least made the Europeans question the validity and importance of NATO and maybe recalculate. Now they're not going to, because the entire political class of Europe are American puppet servants, and they're not gonna like suddenly figure out fucking self-reliance. Okay, they're gonna continue to do that until I see it actually happening. I don't believe it. Okay, so the Republican Party is the threat. Absolutely. But I look at the Republican Party, I'll give you an analogy, which is very cringe, but I think very important to understand where I'm at mentally myself. Think of it like you are in a zombie apocalypse. This will be a good, relatable analogy you can all understand. The Republicans are the zombies. Third way and corporate Democrats are the person who's bit, who hides it. What's a bigger threat to you? The answer is the person who's bit, because they're inside the wire. The sentries are looking out. The booby traps are set out there. The snipers are looking out there. They're sleeping next to you in a sleeping bag. There's someone you trust. They're right there. And so when you fall asleep, you wake up with a zombie chewing your fucking throat, and it's too late to react because they're inside the wire. These are our greater enemies. And you know what you do when you find out somebody's bit in the zombie apocalypse and they were hiding it? You know what you do? You shoot them in the fucking head. That is the solution in the zombie apocalypse. So with that in mind, let's read the third way comeback retreat. And I mean this, like, when I was talking about the extinction level threat, because the Republicans are the zombies, all right? They will come in and eat all of our brains if they can, all right? They will kill us. They are the force of nature that we have to organize against to destroy. I'm not saying Republicans are good. You stupid fucking liberal whiny bitches baby fucks. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, if we're going to defeat them, you have to be organized and together around a plan. And these people represent the destruction of that from within. I personally agree with them. Why are we... Fuck the Democratic Party. Fuck the Democratic Party. It sucks. It's useless. And you know what? Fighting them will result in more defeats, probably. I don't know what will happen. I don't think it tends to work on the first try. But at this point, what are they going to win? They're not going to do anything. They're going to win for 2 years and then do nothing and then have another recession. And what? The Republicans are going to win more? In early February 2025, Third Way gathered a group of highly experienced and passionate political professionals over 1.5 days to begin to chart the Democratic comeback. Every single person in this group should be on a list. I want to know who was there. I want to know every single person who was there. They are our enemies. They are the greatest enemy. This is the enemy. This is the list of traitors to humanity. As part of this retreat, attendees participated in breakout sessions to deliberate on why Democrats are struggling with working class voters around cultural issues, the nature of the economic trust gap with this critical group, and ideas for how we can address both problems. Do you think the idea is raise taxes on the rich and provide more benefits and build up unions and build industrial policy surrounding economic redistributionism? Do you think that's what they're going to say? They're going to say build high quality social and public housing to solve the housing shortage, build high speed rail, build a public transportation network, pay for free college. Like, what do you think they're going to say here? Takeaways on why Democrats have a cultural disconnect with the working class. 1, overemphasis on identity politics. Many working class voters feel Democrats prioritize identity-based groups with overbroad, unifying messages, making them feel excluded rather than included. The faculty lounge problem. Democrats are often viewed as judgmental, out of touch, and dismissive of those without elite education or progressive views. This makes the party seem disconnected from everyday people. That's why we want to get rid of small dollar donations and go to the billionaires. Failure to prioritize economic concerns. While voters struggle with jobs, wages, and inflation, Democrats are seen more focused on cultural and social issues than on economic progress and opportunity. Now, they're going to say we just need to be Republicans. So more tax cuts and, more, bust more unions? Weak messaging and communications. The party's language is vague, politically correct, or overly intellectually, making it hard for working class voters to connect with Democratic policies. There are no Democratic policies. What were her policies? Feed the genocide in Gaza? A small tax break for small business owners? What are you talking about, Democratic policies? Democrats are perceived as intolerant of internal debate, where questioning progressive orthodoxy results in a backlash rather than open discussion. Incredible. Candidates and operatives need to feel more comfortable just saying no to activist groups and unpalatable far left ideas. It's always just nonsensical bullshit and rhetoric. Democrats are seen as defending elite institutions, academia, media, government bureaucracy, while being critical of institutions working class people value churches, small businesses, and police. America has never had less church attendance than ever before. The largest and fastest growing group is non-religious or non-church going people. This is utter nonsense. Allowing the far left to define the party. Activist groups and progressive staffers push unpopular cultural positions, making it seem like Democrats are more extreme left than they actually are. Operatives and campaigns remember that activist groups exist to promote their single issue and raise money around it, not to make Democrats electable. Reactionary rather than proactive. Democrats often let Republicans set the terms of cultural debate, e.g. crime, immigration, instead of clearly defining their own position in a way that resonates with voters. You do that by going by saying, yep, our cities are overrun with crime. Terms like pregnant people and Latinx alienate working class voters who see them as out of touch with real world terms and vocabulary. Democrats focus too much on America's flaws, racism, sexism, inequality. Guys, the best way to get us back with working class people is don't think about inequality. That's far left stuff. Takeaways on why Democrats are not trusted by the working class on the economy. Number one, vilification of wealth. Democrats are seen as hostile to success. What else needs to be said? Okay, here's what I need you to understand. Somebody's got to do something about these people. They need to be found. Like, what's taking so long? These people are the greatest threat to the human race that has ever fucking existed. At this point, like, what can you even say? Democrats focus on broad economic indicators instead of acknowledging real struggles like high prices and stagnant wages, making voters feel dismissed and unheard. These are the same people saying the Biden economy was great. The Democrats have the world's easiest job. The terms of the political fight is the lowest hanging fruit. But this kind of action plan tells we are cooked. They have the hardest job. Democrats need to make left-wing people like Bernie Sanders and Sam Cedar and Emma Vigeland and Matt Leck and Hassan Piker and myself. Their mission is to make these people vote for Joe Biden. That is incredibly difficult. Honestly, my hat's off to them for how successful they are at this nearly impossible task. They have done the most difficult job, which is how do you build a party that is the servant of the billionaires while getting the support of people who oppose billionaires. And they've done it. They've succeeded. Emma Vigeland was just posting how happy she would be if Walz was the nominee. I nearly fucking choked on my own tongue. It's 2025 and you're wanting to surrender to Tim Walz? Are you fucking insane? Economic policy is framed through the lens of identity politics rather than broad-based prosperity, making worker-class voters feel overlooked. These are the people who attacked Bernie Sanders and who hate Bernie Sanders. Anti-growth. This is literally just we have to be Republicans on the economy. Oh, wow. What a surprise. Freedom and justice, which means nothing. This is make yourself into more of a marketing pablum party. Acknowledge that people have multiple identities rather than reducing them to one label. You mean do intersectionality? Uh-oh. Bing bong, bing bong. That's far left. Reduce far left influence and infrastructure. Know that there's nothing about union halls here. Union. Labor. There's no labor unions or no, that's not here. It's skilled laborers. Critique corporate excess and corruption, but avoid an anti-capitalist stance. Focus on jobs, wages, and cost of living concerns. It's becoming even more bland and banal. Be pro-aspiration and pro-capitalism. Have a prosperity gospel aimed at the working class. Call out corporate abuses individually instead of corporations as a whole. They're going to be televangelists. Yeah, that's what they're arguing for. GOP messaging suggests they want voters to be rich, while Democrats are seen as focusing on redistribution rather than wealth creation. Climate policy viewed as anti-growth. Destroying the Democratic Party is literally left-wing. These guys are based, actually. No, they're not. Because people like Sam Cedar exist. The problem that we have is that Sam Cedar exists. And I don't mean that as a dig on Sam Cedar. I love Sam Cedar. But the problem is that a lot of people have logically argued themselves into a position where they just say voting is lesser evil. We have to do lesser evil, lesser evil, lesser evil. And they just spun themselves into a position of never, ever, ever saying the Democratic Party has to be destroyed. Because there's nothing like, you know, I should have realized this earlier, but Sam Cedar just did a thing where it's like 99% genocide is better than 100% genocide. 99% Hitler is better than 100% Hitler. And it's like, actually, you get 99% Hitler by refusing to ever build anything better. You're never going to get progressivism if you're continually voting for 99% Hitler. At a certain point, you have to say, hey, we have to take a risk. 100% Hitler is winning anyway, dumb fuck. 99% Hitler strategy failed. We need to build 0% Hitler. Can we say, I'm willing to let 100%, I'm willing to risk 100% Hitler because he's already here. The fear of 100% Hitler cannot paralyze us anymore. He already won. That's literally it. The cowardice, the pathetic nature of these people. Like, that's what it is. It's truly pathetic. At a certain point, you have no self-respect. And this is not me doing this for wanting to feel good about myself or wanting me to like be virtue signally or think I don't care if you think I'm a good person or not. I don't give a shit if you like me or not. So your whole thing, how this is virtue signal or how this is blah, blah, blah. I don't give a fuck. This is about winning power. Like, it's like pathetic. It's a pathetic fucking loser mentality. And that's all we've got is a pathetic fucking loser mentality. And it's with these left liberals. It is what it is. Like, we have to start saying, like, what are you doing? And like the third way is the Democratic Party. It is the Democratic Party now. Why can't you do both? Do both what? Sam and TMR have the strength we lead. Don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. We need them. They have a strength you don't have. You have a strength they don't have. Bro, like, I'm going to read a post and I want to tell you if this seems feckless to you or not. If Walz wants to run in 2028, I'd be thrilled. But he has to find a way to distance himself from the losing 2024 campaign. Joining Bernie Sanders on his anti-oligarchy tour and then talking about single payer while looking like a younger Bernie would be a great place to start. This is just made up fantasizing. That's never going to happen. We need to be smarter than that. I mean, I don't know what to say. Like, what are you talking about? Why are you wish casting? First of all, why would you be thrilled? I'm like shocked by this post. Like, this post is so bad. And it has 13,000 likes. Like, this is beyond bad. This makes me scared it's that bad. And I'm going to explain to you why it's bad. The first thing is, the fact that you need me to explain it to you puts me into an existential crisis. I got to be honest. The fact that I even have to explain why this post is dumb as fuck puts me into an existential crisis. Like, I don't know. I mean, how bad does your political knowledge have to be? I'm going to explain to you something. The reason why Walz was why we were supporting Walz is because he did the bare minimum of passing what he ran on in when he was governor. And none of what he passed was that radical. In fact, he blocked a bunch of left-wing policies that we need and got into bed with like tech bros and did anti-union shit to prevent the utilization of the apps and shit. So Tim Walz was always a compromise of compromises. He's not a left-winger in any way, shape, or form. Okay? Not even a little bit. Do you think Mexico got AMLO and got Claudia Sheinbaum because they were licking the cum off the jerk-off floor of the PRD? Or was it because they were like, wow, this party sucks and we're going to run a progressive, bold platform? Tim Walz does not represent the left in any way, shape, or form. He's not one of us. He was hey, We're trying to scramble to get a replacement for Joe Biden. What would be a good person in the Veep stakes that was being talked about? And he had to be a white man because we had a black woman running. He was a compromise of a compromise in a desperate situation. And now it's turned around to, I, as a left winger in 2025, want to support him going forward. Are you insane? Are you insane? I think it's just a matter of supporting who exists. And I legitimately want you to, here's my advice for people like you. Shut the fuck up. Never talk again. I'll tell you who to vote for. Shut your fucking mouth. Never talk again. Ever. Your brain is not built for this. You are an order taker. You are a permanent private in the army. Shut the fuck up. Your brain is stupid. You're worthless. Shut up. You'll never get better. You're just not built for this. I don't know if there weren't enough nutrients when you were a newborn or something, but you're just not gonna be smart enough to talk to me. Just shut up forever. That's my advice for you. And like, the reality is that this is the situation we're in now. Andrew Cuomo is running in New York for the mayor, excuse me. This sex criminal, corrupt, anti-leftist fuck is the Democratic Party guy, front runner. This is what your kind of politics has led to. You need to stop. And like, the fact that I even have to explain why Tim Walz is a bad choice for 2028 for the left wingers in a stream called Central Committee. Are you fucking okay? Are you okay? He killed thousands of people with COVID. He's a sex criminal. He hates the left. He worked overtime to put the Republicans in control of the New York Senate so he didn't have to veto progressive legislation. New York City is falling a fuck apart. The subways are rotting. Homelessness is out of control. Housing prices out of control. Everything's a shit. Everything fucking sucks. What the fuck are you doing?
Black. I am black. I am gay. I am disabled. I am a woman.
I don't even know what to say. Like, the fact that people ask me this question, like, why are you so offended by Tim Walz? And I replied in the nicest way I know how, which is, why would you be thrilled? He's not a left winger, but rather a bog standard Democrat politician. I think the left should be aiming for one of their own to lead. Why are so many progressives always looking for someone far to their right to surrender to? And reading my post, you should be like, yeah, wow. This is the only acceptable reaction if you have a functioning brain. Wow, Mike's right about this. Why aren't we looking for like anyone else who's actually on the left who might be a good candidate? Oh, what's this? EO made some sort of like puffs from scratch? The flour? Wow.
It's the Brazilian cheese dough you get at the steakhouses. He just burnt himself.
You don't know what it's called?
I don't know how to pronounce it, but it's like pão de queijo or something. I don't know.
Pretty good. Dude, no way in hell will a true progressive be elected. Walz is the best middle road candidate. Hell, most of us who voted Harris were only voting Walz because Walz was a running mate. Walz gave us some of the tiniest bit of hope. My response to this is just shut the fuck up. Just shut the fuck up. I mean, what can you even say? Dude, no way in hell will a true progressive be elected. This is the legacy. This is the legacy of, I'm going to vote for the lesser evil. I can't win. I'm all alone. I'm the only good person. Everyone else is bad. Mentality of this Democrat blue MAGA bullshit. Look at this fucking loser. I wish I didn't have. Can we have one day where I can just say stuff without TOS? Can we get one day where I have freedom of speech?
Cuomo is potentially going to jump into the mayor's race as early as this week. You've seen at least one of your colleagues here on the Hill endorse him. You called for him to resign a few years ago. Should he be engaging in the mayor's race?
I haven't had a conversation with Governor Cuomo at this point. I do look forward to speaking with him sooner rather than later, if in fact he's going to jump into the mayor's race. And then we'll take it from there.
Would it be good for New York if he did?
I think he'd be a candidate that a lot of people, as I've heard from the district that I represent, would be very interested in checking out.
Andrew,
vote for the Democrats. Vote for the Democrats. Richie Torres endorses Mr. Tough Guy Andrew Cuomo for New York City mayor and latest blow to Eric Adams. America loves a comeback. How do we get a leftist as a major candidate? I have a strategy. How about we vote for Andrew Cuomo for in the next 50 years? What do you think about that? Is that a good strategy? Is that a good strategy? Andrew Cuomo for 50 years? That's your strategy, you dumb, arrogant fuck. How do these liberals have arrogance? You're losers. Donald Trump has cooked your ass. The Republicans control every fucking thing. How the fuck are you arrogant? How are you talking? Why aren't you sitting there with a fucking, like, I can't even say it. God damn fucking censorship. You know, you don't need to make fun of someone's appearance to get this point across. What did I do? What was making fun of their appearance? First of all, shut the fuck up. Who cares? A person can't see the future if one of their eyes goes 90 degrees off the other angle of their eye. Like, you know, I'm trying to help them see the future and they're seeing fucking like, they're like a gecko up here. I mean, like, what do you want me to say? No wonder they can't see the future. No wonder they can't see anything coming. Do I have someone who I'd really like to see be the next candidate? Yeah, sure. I've said it a million times. I'd love to see a real outsider like Sean Fain run. All we do is whine. When is that going to change? I'm ready to talk solutions. All I've done in this entire stream for 5 years is talk solutions. I've continually talked about real concrete policies. I've talked about parliamentary strategy. I've talked about Senate rules. I've talked about structural strategies. I've talked about advertising strategy. All I do is offer fucking solutions. They just don't follow my solutions. Like, all I do is give fucking solutions. They're just not listened to. And when the liberal strategies fail utterly, they say we have to do our liberal strategies even more.
Running against a guy who cut Medicaid and stole money from the MTA, who says he's fighting for the working class but showered his rich donors with tax breaks. And when he was accused of serial sexual misconduct, spent years hounding the women who spoke out. No, I'm not talking about Donald Trump. I'm talking about Andrew Cuomo.
I was grateful that he supported the campaign.
Cuomo says he will not be returning any of Donald Trump's money.
Now he's decided to move from Westchester to New York City with the promise of leading us through the chaos of Donald Trump. But Andrew Cuomo is the chaos.
The governor sexually harassed multiple women.
Intentionally delayed releasing COVID death numbers at nursing homes.
Profited on a book while others were dying.
From our subways.
Claustrophobia, panic, heat exhaustion.
Is Governor Cuomo raiding New York City taxpayer dollars at the expense of the MTA?
To our schools.
Cuomo has cut taxes on millionaires, estates, and banks while reducing spending on public schools.
To the hospitals that could have saved more lives during the pandemic.
I would call Governor Cuomo probably the single most important person in terms of the drive to close down hospital beds.
Time and time again, Andrew Cuomo has put billionaires and book deals before you. And he's waited this long to announce his run for mayor to avoid answering why.
I thought your question was stupid. Let's try not to be obnoxious.
I think New Yorkers are hungry for a different kind of politics, one that puts working people first. And that's exactly what our campaign is doing. So every door you knock, every dollar you donate, you help us take one step closer.
The left have optics problems. Bad optics turns more people away than draws them in. In the grand scheme of things, you might be in the negative. The last refuge of a scoundrel, an uneducated, dumb fuck scoundrel, is to complain about optics without any concrete points. Yeah, you may be right, and I can't think of anything, but I'm just going to say the word optics. And you're saying, Mike, you're making me feel bad about myself. Haven't you considered that me feeling bad about myself is the most important thing in the world?
To building a city that working class people can actually afford.
Shut the fuck up. Like, look at these fucking losers. This is the leader of the Democratic Party. Look at this fucking loser, dude. How did he get in charge of the Democratic Party? Calling Walz a standard Democrat is crazy, being that as soon as he had a majority, he actually passed shit. Passing like the most milquetoast liberal policies makes you not a standard Democrat now. People are like sucking your dick. Pathetic. All I know is that people aren't even trying to use their brains anymore. Excuse me. Like that's the strike. That's the struggle we're in. The goal to move away from the dominance of small dollar donors is a key to the whole agenda. The goal is to have the Democratic Party cease to be a political party in any meaningful way and instead become an ad agency controlled by billionaires. Instead of the normal party that creates a consensus from internal Democratic contestation, you have a big brain consultants come up with slogans to please ketamine, Adderall addicted crypto plutocrats. If this comes to pass, the Democratic Party will die deservedly. It already is this. It's been this for a long time. The crash out is the Democratic Party is dying, and the meaningless, the loser fucking DGG perverts. Honestly, guys, I have a serious question for you. What makes you get up in the morning? Is it just inertia? Mommy brings tendies? I want you to think about what life was like before you were born. The infinite blackness. It's not so scary to think about the time before you were born, right? And you think about that before you were born. You don't get that existential dread from before you were born, right? What's this?
I just want to say something. I think transgender...
Say something. You haven't shut the fuck up for 20 minutes.
Singing, pitching. Oh, okay. Do you want...
I thought this was going to be a dialogue.
All right, go ahead.
No.
Where you want
go
to
ahead. It's not how you start a conversation. How long have you lived alone? That's why you have a dog. The thing can't fucking interrupt you.
That's right.
That's my president. That's humor. Why are you molding about the Democratic Party self-immolating? There's no reforming it. Bernie's last campaign proved it. I think the thing I'm molding about is the fact that we can't get people that are supposedly smart to even deal with the reality that the Democratic Party is fucking toast. We need to build a third or a new party because they built their careers mocking grifter third parties, which you should mock grifter third parties. I'm not advocating for a grifter third party. I'm not delusional and think that I can start this thing on my own. But they think the whole advocacy of abandoning the Democratic Party is somehow automatic crank behavior when it's like did you not just see what happened with Bernie Sanders? He's the most popular politician on the left. How did he get that? He's not a Democrat. The Dem campaign I worked on in 2024 fired far-left door knockers because of Palestine, kept on lazy libs who only wanted to do text phone bag campaigns, which does nothing. They stopped doing in-person town halls because of protesters. Seeing it all up close is insane. They don't give a fuck. Oh, yeah, they don't care. Why isn't Bernie starting his own party? I don't know. I legitimately don't know. After the Democrats lost to Trump again, I mean, what's the argument? I can see the argument of listen, you got to listen, the Democrats suck, but we got to stop Trump. Trump won. Anyway. So what's the fucking point of propping these people up? I don't care that he's old. Who gives a fuck that he's old? Is he sharp? Americans also lack perspective about how right they're skewed their political landscape is. Democrats are very right-wing compared to most of their places in the world. It's wild looking at. I mean, America's a shithole. It's a shithole. It's a fucking joke. There have been 12 years of Democratic presidents. Okay, hold on. Let's get some numbers. California high-speed rail ballot measure was 2008. They can't build one railroad in 20 years between two of the richest cities in the entire fucking world. They can't build one railroad. One in 20 fucking years with 12 years of Democratic presidents. And people will tell you the Democratic Party, you need to vote for them. Then you have one of the things that really gets me about the left liberals is they say you got to vote blue no matter who. The Democrats have been in control of New York for how long? They've been in control of California for decades, and they get nothing done. None of them have single payer health care. None of them are significantly investing in public housing or in public transit. Where is the blue state where everything is working well? I mean, you can make fun of Elon Musk's stupid Tesla tunnels that go nowhere, but at least he built a tunnel that you can drive your Tesla in at 35 miles an hour. At least there is a tunnel. The libs don't even have one railroad. There's nothing. Somebody said Destiny admitted you were right about your debate together. Is that true? I don't pay attention to him. I really don't. I mean, we did 6 debates and I was right about every single thing we said. If you go back and watch all our old debates, you'll see that he was wrong about literally every point he made. That's why he's obsessed 6 years fucking later. You don't hear them going Mike, look at this point Destiny made about you in your debates. Why do you have a response? The debate perverts have never done that in 6 years. I've been asking them to and be like, hey, can you bring up a point that he made when I was wrong? Hey, Jay Marianne, how are you guys doing? Everyone follow Jay Marianne. I think the starting a new party has the Green Party grift feel to it, and it can't get off the ground no matter the name. They were pretty good. Well done, Vio. Thank you for the shout out, Cosmos. Do / shout out, not just the shout out in the text bot. Do the Twitch shout out. I'm saying it's loser activity to not split from the Democrats after getting ran out of primaries by actual Democrats in 2016 and then falling for it again in 2020, then advocating for Genocide Joe in 2024. Loser shit. Yeah, that is absolute loser shit. I mean, they didn't even, like, I was one of the people who said Joe Biden should drop out. You know when I said he should drop out? 2022, 2023, 2024. And then you know what? He dropped out way too late for us to have a primary, which was the entire reason he didn't drop out earlier, because they didn't want to have a primary, because God forbid somebody with a little bit of a vision could run. A left-wing split from the Dems could work for a new party, but it doesn't seem any Dem would actually do that. Why would they? They're not going to. Why would they? Think about the structure of the Democratic Party. Do you think there's actually like a party structure? There isn't. If you win the primary for the Democratic Party, let's say you run for Congress and you win the primary, what happens next? Nothing happens next. Okay, wait, that's wrong. One thing happens next. Your name, it'll say Democratic Party for whatever position you won the nomination in the general election in November. That is it. On the ballot, it'll say Democratic Party with your name. That is all winning the Democratic primary gets you. That's it. No money, no volunteers, no advertising, no support, nothing. The only thing you get is what people give you. So being a Democrat gets you one thing. You'll be under the Democratic Party on the ballot. That's all it gets you. That is it. Does that sound like something that's such a big deal to get rid of? I mean, like, it's fucking crazy. If you win as a progressive, as the Democratic nominee, that's all you get. They don't come in and say like, okay, well, here you won. Here's your money. We're going to put you on this advertising. We're going to do this for you. No. New Jersey gubernatorial candidate forum interrupted by pro-Palestinian protesters on twilight of the now dead ceasefire as Israel begins another assault. Oh, great. As a European, I don't understand why there's not more parties. The reason is because we have something called the Electoral College. The Electoral College, so we basically have an elected king. This is the thing that people don't like to hear, but is true. In America, the president is by far and away the most important position because he has pseudo-legislative powers through something called administrative agencies. And so the president of the United States is by far and away the most powerful position. In order to be elected president, you have to have a majority of the electoral votes, 270 electoral votes. If nobody gets 270 electoral votes, then no one is elected president. And it goes to the House of Representatives, and each state gets one vote in the House of Representatives for president. So the Electoral College becomes a 100-vote Electoral College. So you go from 538 to 100. Where do you think lose more of their electoral votes than anyone else? Bigger states. So that is how America works. So basically we are forced to form coalitions prior to the general election. This creates a sclerotic party system because the Democratic Party is not democratic. The turnout for primaries is very low. In Europe, the turnout for the German election was 80-some%. So when the Die Linke or Die Linke gets 9% of the vote and they get 9% of the seats, that's because it's the general election and everybody votes in the general election. So they get proportionally represented. And then they go and try to form a coalition after that. In America, we have primaries that have 15%, 25% turnout, maybe 35% turnout in a presidential year. Extremely low turnout elections. So the vast majority of voters don't get to pick the two candidates. The candidates are, and when you're talking about like odd year elections or like, midterm elections, the primary turnout is so fucking low. The only people picking the candidates for the general election are a very small population. So because we have this so the coalition doesn't actually change because the structure of the Democratic Party becomes ossified. And so the neoliberal, centrist, corporatist Democratic Party grab control of the party apparatus. They have control of all the donors. And so they keep control of the party no matter what happens. So there's no, like, you can try to do primaries, but it's not going to, even if you win a bunch of races, you don't change anything because of the way the party goes. The only way to change the party is to win the presidential nomination and then win the presidency. So there's a double block, right? So the centrist Democrats try to block you from the primary. Let's assume you win the primary. What do? They immediately betray the Democratic Party for the Republicans. This happens every single time. So for progressivism to win in America, they've got to win over a party. Then they actually have to win the presidency. And then, only then, do you have the positional power needed to exert change. That is how American politics is different than Europe. Because the vast majority of people are never consulted on what kind of policy should be on offer in the general election, because we have these pre-made coalitions, and the left in America is cucked. They don't believe in themselves. They don't believe in the power of their ideas. They don't believe they can win. They don't even really understand, because again, who is going to be on the populist left? The populist left are going to be young people. It's going to be poorer people. It's going to be people that don't participate in primaries as much. So they're just more ignorable. And this is the trap that we're captured in. We're captured in this trap of, oh yeah, man, young people just don't vote. Yes, they fucking do. They vote in the general election. So this is why I'm advocating for abandoning the Democratic Party for a new party. And we can construct this party to be democratic. We can construct this party to make decisions. I'll give you an example of something you could do. You could have primary elections for the next election during the general election of a previous election. So you have the highest possible turnout situation. Why the fuck do you want low turnout? So your party will be, you'll select the leaders during general elections, or you could do it during a party conference, or you can do all sorts of shit. You can pass bylaws. If somebody takes super PAC money, the party can decertify them and replace them on the ballot. You could do all sorts of shit to change the party to protect ourselves as much as possible from co-option and corruption. But this is what people don't want to talk about, because they don't really think about politics in a serious way. They don't really understand it in a serious way. They engage with politics like a casual sports fan engages with local sports coverage. That's the level of conversations that I'm forced to watch. I'm not talking to people who know anything. I'm talking to people who have just half heard shit out of the corner of their ear and they repeat it at me. And it's like, and the arrogance that people do it. It's wild. I agree with you in principle, but what organization has the capacity to start a new party that actually has a chance? I mean, it would have to be a dirty rupture. It would require a bunch of politicians leaving the Democratic Party and starting their new party and risking their seats and risking their asses. And then Democrats are going to feel intimidated and they're going to feel pulled between the two directions. Are they going to abandon the party and go to the new party? Are they going to stick with the Democratic Party and try to run against that? Like, it creates tension. It creates crisis. And that is what, unfortunately, left liberals don't want. They don't want a crisis in the Democratic Party. They want to bear hug Andrew Cuomo. And that's what Morena did in Mexico. They risked it and they won. That's what the Republican Party did. That's why we have a Republican Party. The Republican Party is the legacy of people leaving the Whigs to form their own anti-slavery party. Abraham Lincoln was a Whig. Sadly, some people view politics as team sports. I'm saying it's time to get an expansion draft.
This video was made possible by the generous support of my patrons. If you would like
All right,
to join
we're getting
them in
another
helping
red
grow
pen.
this
We're watching
channel,
another
you
red
can do
pen
so at the
chat.
links in
This we're getting another red pen. It's Sunday, you're getting red pen. And then we'll watch some more shit. You're getting your theory. It's time to eat your vegetables. Before we start making fun of Destiny or Ethan Klein, you have to eat your vegetables.
in the description below. Vladimir Lenin's left-wing communism, an infantile disorder, was written in 1920 as a critical intervention into the early international communist movement, right at a time when the Bolsheviks were consolidating Soviet power and revolutionary movements were spreading across Europe. Addressed to the newly formed Communist International, the text serves as both a theoretical guide and a strategic manual, warning against the twin dangers of right-wing opportunism and ultra-left dogmatism. Lenin critiques the left communists in Germany and Britain for rejecting parliamentary participation, trade union work, and tactical compromises, errors that isolate revolutionaries from the working masses and weaken the movement against capitalism. Lenin maintained that while each country must wage proletarian struggle according to its unique conditions, there are also universal lessons to be drawn from the Soviet experience. At a time when socialist revolutions in Europe were failing due to strategic miscalculation, this text became a crucial document for shaping the discipline, flexibility, and mass engagement necessary for successful proletarian revolution. More than a historical reflection, Lenin's text remains a key work of Marxist strategy, offering enduring insight into the necessity of revolutionary leadership, tactical maneuver.
Chomsky states that this text is evidence that Lenin was a reactionary political opportunist. This text is why Noam Chomsky died at 90, never having made a significant dent on American political economy, and Lenin won a revolution.
And engagement with the realities of political struggle.
Chomsky is still alive, Mike? Yeah. He's just about to take over America in the anarchist syndicalist revolution any day now.
The Russian Revolution of 1917 was initially seen as a historical anomaly, a unique event shaped by the specific conditions of Russia's economic and political backwardness. Many believe that the proletarian revolution in advanced capitalist countries would bear little resemblance to the Russian experience. However, as the revolution unfolded, it became clear that its significance extended beyond Russia itself by serving as a model for future revolutions across the world. The international relevance of the Russian Revolution is not simply a broad theoretical idea, but a historical inevitability. The revolution's fundamental features, such as the seizure of state power by the working class, the establishment of Soviet-style governance, and the rejection of bourgeois parliamentary democracy, are bound to be repeated on a global scale. As Lenin says, "We now possess quite considerable international experience, which shows very definitely that certain fundamental features of our revolution have a significance that is not local, or particularly national, or Russian alone, but international." However, while Lenin maintains that the Russian model serves as a guiding example, it is important not to overstate its universal applicability. He cautions against assuming that all revolutions will unfold exactly as they did in Russia, predicting that once a proletarian revolution succeeds in more advanced capitalist countries, Russia will no longer be seen as the model. Soon after the victory of the proletarian revolution in at least one of the advanced countries, a sharp change will probably come about. Russia will cease to be the model and will once again become a backward country in the Soviet and socialist sense.
The problem is they had these fucking anarchist left communists who didn't want to fight, and they allowed themselves to get rolled by proto-fascists.
Despite its global significance,
Hey Mike, I 100% agree with you on your walls take, but I also question whether we should not have leaned into the top walls memes early in the Veep stakes in this community. I feel like it set people's standards too low for the future. This is why I'm showing you Lenin's left communism and infantile disorder, because you need to stop being an infant and allowing your emotions to rule over your political moves. Emotions should not control you. Rationality should control you. Emotions are the treats. If you ever felt like connected to Tim Walz, then you were doing baby shit. I don't know what else to tell you, man. You need to like stop allowing yourself to think like a fucking animal and start thinking like a human being, a sentient human being. You can like go, okay, we're supporting Walz because he seems to be the most likely person to support a change on the Gaza genocide policy, and actually would require her to defend a bunch of like mainstream democratic policies that she seems to be wanting to run away from, like, free college, or, free school lunches, or raising the minimum wage. It was always a tactical decision. It was never a decision of like emotional sentiment. Like, Jesus Christ.
Prominent socialist leaders in Western Europe failed to recognize the significance of the Russian Revolution. Figures such as Karl Kautsky in Germany and Otto Bauer and Friedrich Adler in Austria not only misunderstood the historical moment, but actively worked against it. Lenin harshly criticizes them for this position, stating that they have failed to understand this, which is why they have proven to be reactionaries and advocates of the worst kind of opportunism and social treachery. Lenin points out that the irony here is that Karl Kautsky himself had once recognized Russia's revolutionary potential. In 1902, Kautsky wrote an article for Iskra titled "The Slavs and Revolution," where he predicted a shift in revolutionary energy from Western Europe to Russia. He said that, at present time, it would seem that not only have the Slavs entered the ranks of the revolutionary nations, but that the center of revolutionary thought and revolutionary action is shifting more and more to the Slavs. Kautsky further argued that Russia's revolutionary movement could revitalize the declining revolutionary fervor in Western Europe. He said that the Russian revolutionary movement that is now flaring up will perhaps prove to be the most potent means of exercising the spirit of flabby Philistinism and coldly calculating politics that is beginning to spread in our midst. Kotsky's analysis was particularly insightful, given that for much of the 19th century, Russia had been seen as a bastion of reactionary politics. But he saw past this history and argued that this dynamic had reversed. Russia has long ceased to be a bulwark of reaction and absolutism. I think the reverse is true today. Western Europe is becoming Russia's bulwark of reaction and absolutism. Lenin remarks that 18 years ago, Kotsky not only had a firm grasp on Russia's revolutionary situation, but understood European capital and the political elites to be the greatest obstacles to the Russian revolutionary movement.
And today, it is left liberals in the Democratic Party that is the greatest obstacle. They're warmongers, they're imperialists, they engage in the most virulent anti-left political work, and they are not they don't desire, and they take the space of the left wing in the masses' minds. When you think left wing in America, they think of a cringe rad lib with blue hair screaming about how it's a microaggression to say that they should get a job. Like, that is the fucking mentality. That's the space that is occupied by, in the regular person's mind, of what the left is. It's not a union organizer. It is not somebody who believes in it's not Bernie Sanders. Believe it or not, it's not Bernie Sanders. And that is why you see a defeat.
Yet, despite this, Kotsky later rejected the Bolshevik Revolution and became one of its fiercest critics. Lenin underscores the indispensable role of iron discipline within the Bolshevik Party as the cornerstone of political victory and the establishment of proletarian dictatorship. He argues that the Bolsheviks' ability to maintain power throughout 2.5 years of civil war and counter-revolutionary attacks was possible because of the party's rigorous discipline and unwavering support by the working class. Lenin emphasizes that the proletariat's seizure of state power is not merely a political transition, but a life and death struggle against the bourgeoisie, a far more powerful enemy whose resistance intensifies after their overthrow. He argues that the bourgeoisie's strength lies not only in its international connections and support of global capital, but also in the pervasive influence of small-scale production, which continually regenerates
corporate captured Dems could be won over. It depends on what you're talking about. If you're talking about the people that are actually in the Democratic Party today as officials and politicians, the answer is no. If you're talking about regular people who vote Democrat because they want to see a better world and they're trying to do nice by their fellow man and they care about whatever X, Y, and Z issue, yes. There is this tendency in political discussion to conflate the voters who voted for someone with the politician themselves. And you shouldn't do that. Same thing with people who voted for Bernie Sanders, by the way. Just because you voted for Bernie Sanders doesn't mean you're a socialist or you understand socialist politics. You did a good thing. Thank you. But that's not what being a leftist is. It's not just, oh, I voted for Bernie, therefore I know I'm the font of wisdom for left-wing thought.
These corrupt machines, which, and New York's not the only one, but it's one of the most corrupt and the most sclerotic, they're an annoyance to them. Like, they're not into this to necessarily win elections for some ideological purpose or to make the lives of constituents better. They're in it to gain positions of power, to enrich themselves and their friends, to bring misery upon their enemies, both their personal enemies and their business enemies, and to then have a nice robust social calendar. Like they throw good parties. It's a very clubby kind of atmosphere, and that's what it is. And the elections are an inconvenience that have to be dealt with in order to justify the entire apparatus. That's a main reason why you have such low turnout. Like they even started moving, this helped cost Joe Crowley his seat. If you want to juice turnout, you put everybody's election at the same time, from senator down to dog catcher. What they figured out is that if we spread these out, then people have even less reason to show up to vote. So you'd vote for Congress on one week, and then down the road, you'd vote for judicial seats, and then you'd vote over here for ward leader or whatever. And because they wanted as few people participating as possible, because they wanted to know every single person who was participating, and be able to rely on their votes. That's why AOC was able to knock off Joe Crowley.
I have a lib friend who told me that, well, red states are going to suffer more than blue states or whatever. I don't care that Trump won. It annoys me because it's just a pitiful. First of all, no, that's not true. That's not true. Trump does something and he does something very intelligent. Is he practices communalism. You guys know what communalism is? Communalism is what happens when democracy has failed. Communalism, I'll give you an example. Like, you're used to thinking about politics ideologically, right? Conservative versus liberal versus socialist versus, where it's like, we believe in these like class divisions, or we believe in these various like, national projects. Communalism is when you say, I don't believe in that. I believe in a minimum wage that only, that's a bad example. I believe in free healthcare for people like me. Free healthcare for Protestant Christians, but no free healthcare for Muslim atheists or atheists. I like seeing free public housing for white people. It is extracting from community A to pay community B. I'm going to raise taxes on the blacks and cut taxes on the whites. That's communalism. That is tribalism. That is when a political grouping is beginning to break down. It becomes extractive. It becomes a clique. And this is what happens in a lot of failed democracies, by the way, especially in, the Caribbean or Africa, because they're not built around a coherent national project. It becomes people abusing tribal identities to extract resources and wealth and power from other tribal identities. You use the state to settle scores between groups. That is what Trump is good at. So what is Trump going to do with his policies? His policies are going to reward the states that voted for him. He's going to take taxes and money from the blue states, and he's going to give it to the red states. Red states are going to feel great. They're going to be like, wow, we love voting for Trump. Now, if that's his instinct, by the way. And it's a smart instinct. It's a mafioso instinct. But it works. It's flawed. It's wrong politically and morally, but it works from a power position. That's how humanity has lived politically for generations and generations. When one feudal lord fought another feudal lord, it wasn't about ideology. They both believed in the same system. They just thought this group of people should be at the top instead of this group of people, and they were going to fight it out to see which one was stronger. That is the type of politics we're reverting to. We're going away from like logic or, and that's why hypocrisy mongering doesn't work on Republicans. They don't give a shit. They don't give a fucking shit. And that's what the Democratic Party is in New York City. It's so funny when you have New York City socialists or leftists talking about how they want Tim Walz. That's so funny. Solve your own fucking city.
Capitalist relations and bourgeois tendencies.
And by the way, chat, what I just said, the reason why I know this, just to explain it, is because I took a lot of college courses on politics, and I studied a lot, and I read a lot of books, and I got A's on the tests, and then I remembered them. So this is like, scholarly research that I did at school. I didn't just read shit on Twitter and then suddenly know about communalism, okay? I studied political science so I could explain it. I didn't go, I mean, is it even in Wikipedia? Probably. It's like trying to say communism. It's trying to push me to communism. Why is it searching? Maybe I'm misspelling it. Oh, here we go. We got a textbook. Oh, we're going to get it to go. The word communalism emerged from the word community, which simply denotes a group of people organized along some common social markers with a degree of identity transferred into a sense of we feeling. In this sense, communities include social groupings based on various social ascriptions and affiliations, such as caste groups, linguistic groups, sects, and cults. It is an ideology that, to unite the community, suppresses differences within the community while emphasizing the community's essential unity against other communities. There you go. And they're specifically talking about it in India, which, yeah, that's a good example of a place where it's like Modi is Hindu nationalist. That's exactly what I'm talking about. They just deny Indianness to Muslims.
This makes the proletariat's task of maintaining discipline and centralization.
What's the difference between communalism and tribalism? Tribalism refers to a like pre-modern grouping where it's like traditional societies, traditional tribes based on like direct blood relationships, whereas communalism is like more of a it's like neo-tribalism. It's like reconstructing tribal identities for political advantage in a modern system.
All the more critical.
God, there's a term for when a democracy has just broken down into this point. Fuck, I can't remember what it's called.
He says that the discipline of a revolutionary party depends on 3 key factors. Number 1,
anome means a breakdown of social order. That's not what it is.
Class consciousness, dedication, and resilience of the proletarian vanguard. Number 2, its ability to connect with and integrate itself with the broader working masses, especially the proletariat, but also non-proletarian workers. And number 3, the correctness of its political leadership, strategy, and tactics, as demonstrated by the practical experiences of the masses. Without these conditions, party discipline cannot be genuinely established and will deteriorate into empty rhetoric. These conditions can only develop through sustained struggle and experience, guided by a correct revolutionary theory that evolves through real mass movements rather than rigid dogma. Lenin attributes the Bolshevik success in building and maintaining discipline to 2 prevailing historical conditions. First, Bolshevism emerged on a solid foundation of Marxist theory, which had been tested and refined through decades of revolutionary struggle in Russia. From the 1840s to the 1890s, progressive Russian thinkers, exiled by the brutal Tsarist regime, allowed Russian revolutionaries to develop a deep understanding of international revolutionary movements and to assimilate advanced revolutionary ideas from Europe and America into Russian practice. Lenin notes that Russia's acquisition of Marxism was the result of half a century of unparalleled torment and sacrifice, making it the only correct revolutionary theory for the proletarian struggle. Second, Bolshevism underwent 15 years of unparalleled practical experience, during which it navigated a wide variety of revolutionary forms, legal and illegal, peaceful and violent, open and underground, parliamentary and terrorist. No other country experienced such a rapid and diverse succession of revolutionary struggles in such a short period. This rich and varied process, combined with the backwardness of Russia and the severity of Tsarist oppression, accelerated the development of the revolutionary movement and allowed the Bolsheviks to implement and adapt the most advanced tactics from global revolutionary practice. The 1905 revolution was an intense ideological and political ferment. The impending revolutionary storm was felt across society, and all classes were preparing for the coming struggle. The political exiles abroad debated the theoretical foundations of the revolution, while within Russia, the 3 main class forces, liberal bourgeoisie, petty bourgeois Democrats, and proletarian revolutionaries, engaged in fierce ideological and tactical battles. These debates laid the condition for the mass struggles that followed, with the press serving as a battleground for shaping the political and ideological weapons of the revolution. The 1905 revolution marked the first major test of these ideological and tactical positions. All classes came into open conflict, and the strike movement reached unprecedented levels, evolving from economic demands to boycotting parliament and eventually armed insurrection.
My throat is just fucked.
The Soviets, as organs of working class...
My throat is just fucked, chat. I blew it out last week. It's just...
Power emerged spontaneously during this dress rehearsal, where the alternation of legal and illegal tactics, the relationship between the proletariat and the peasantry, and the debates over the role of the Soviets were all tested. Lenin asserts that without this dress rehearsal, which foreshadowed Bolshevik victory, the October Revolution of 1917 would have been impossible. However, when the 1905 revolution was defeated, the revolutionary movement entered a period of reaction. Tsarism reasserted control, and the revolutionary parties were decimated. Depression, demoralization, and ideological confusion set in.
How many of you guys even know anything about the history of the Russian Revolution at all?
Revolutionaries turning to mysticism or abandoning the struggle altogether. However, Lenin argues that this period of defeat
was... Right away, guys. I guess they should have just given up. Well, why... Mike, I will only abandon the third way Democratic Party if you tell me who is going to be the candidate in 2025, and they're definitely 100% going to win. Or else it's just unrealistic.
It's also a time of learning. The revolutionary parties...
By the way, even if I do that, even if I tell you exactly what's going to happen, nobody goes like, you know, Mike, 3 years ago, you told me that Joe Biden was not going to pass Build Back Better. And I have now become I've changed my position. That just doesn't happen.
particularly the Bolsheviks, learned the importance of strategic retreat and the need to combine legal and illegal.
Vosh says revolution needs to be peaceful or it unjustified, and it needs to play into electoralism. Guys, why are you listening to a sex criminal freak who never read a book? Because he debated Destiny on child pornography or something, or like necrophilia and why it was good. One of the funniest things about Destiny that I found out after, like when I was already a streamer, I wasn't a Destiny fan. I became aware of him in the political space when he presented himself as kind of like a Bernie curious, anti-racist guy. And I was like, oh, okay, there's finally like a video gamer who's not a psycho. But it turned out that like later I found out that they would frequently debate necrophilia, pedophilia, incest, and like their community believes that incest isn't wrong. Like they think logically that incest is not wrong because they're too stupid to actually construct what they consider to be philosophically consistent argument. Or they don't think that there's any arguments against incest. This is legitimately a position of the Destiny community. What did I like about him? Nothing. I wasn't really a fan. I just found out. Honestly, the only contact I ever had with him was adversarial.
Legal work. It was, as Lenin said, a lesson in historical dialectics, a lesson in an understanding of the political struggle, and in the art and science of waging that struggle. It is at moments of need that one learns who one's friends are. Defeated armies learn their lesson.
This is the question. This is the reality we need to be. This is the energy. The left is defeated. You find out who your enemies are. You find out who your allies are. And I can tell you right now, everybody's saying voting Tim Walz, they're your enemy. And I don't like to say this. It's not that I'm happy for this. I'm unhappy. I'm unhappy that this is the reality. I miss Michael Brooks. I miss Jamie Peck. I'm sorry. I don't want this to be my reality, but it is my reality. I'm not going to pretend that saying Tim Walz should be the 2028 nominee is anything but disastrous. I mean, it is what it is. What can he say?
The period from 1910 to 1914 saw a gradual revival of the revolutionary movement, spurred by events such as the Lena massacre of 1912. The Bolsheviks, through a combination of illegal work and the use of legal opportunities, regained their influence among the working class. In this regard, Lenin emphasizes the importance.
The expansion of, like look at this guy. This is your guy?
Final voice in the Situation Room. Would you support or oppose a preemptive strike by Israel on Iran? You have 2 minutes.
Well, thank you.
Would you support an unnecessary war that could spiral into nuclear exchange or world war? You have 2 minutes. The only answer to that is a stupid question. And you're stupid for asking it. This is why everybody hates the media. I am not going to commit American boys and girls to death because I don't want to look weak. Fuck you. I will do what's in the best interest of this country. Israel is a different country. It depends on the context. That's the only answer that any mature adult will give you. Any other answer is a pandering politician that will sell you out.
Thank you for those joining at home tonight. Let's keep in mind where this started. October 7th, Hamas terrorists massacred over 1,400 Israelis and took prisoners. Israel's ability to be able to defend itself is absolutely fundamental. Getting its hostages back, fundamental, and ending the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. But the expansion of Israel and its proxies is an absolute fundamental necessity for the United States to have the steady leadership there.
Final voice in the situation.
Amazing. Again, this isn't October of 2024 where you're trying to make a difficult decision between difficult, choices. It's 2025. We have the freedom to imagine whatever we want to fucking imagine. We don't even have to. We get to play with hypotheticals. We get to imagine our perfect candidate. Why are you guys so desperate to surrender to somebody with no riz? And he was a bad debater. What are you doing? What are you talking about? I don't get it. What is going on with these people?
Of tactical flexibility, noting that the Bolsheviks were compelled to participate in the reactionary Duma and other legal organizations to maintain their revolutionary core while reaching a broader audience. The Bolsheviks would have never succeeded in doing this had they not followed the correct tactics of combining illegal work with the utilization of legal opportunities. The outbreak of World War I exposed the bankruptcy of the Second International, as most socialist parties betrayed the proletariat by supporting their own bourgeois governments. Lenin highlights the Bolsheviks' unwavering internationalist stance, which set them apart from social chauvinists and opportunists of the Second International. He notes that the Bolsheviks' ability to expose the treachery of these parties and maintain a clear revolutionary line was crucial to their eventual victory. He writes that one of the principal reasons why Bolshevism was able to achieve victory in 1917 to 1920 was that since the end of 1914, it has been ruthlessly exposing the baseness and vileness of social chauvinism and Trotskyism.
What he's referring to there, in case you guys didn't get it, which you probably didn't, so I'll stop and explain it, is when World War I broke out, a bunch of socialist parties did what Vosh did, and they said, we are anarcho-NATOist. So German socialists, social democrats were like, we need to support Germany in World War I. And Labor was like, we need to support the British in World War I. And so actual leftists said, why are you supporting this disgusting imperialist war? It has no bearing on the question of class consciousness. You should be fighting against this war. This war is evil. This war is bad. What are you doing? And the Bolsheviks fought against the Russian government. And they said, we want the Russian government to lose the war. We don't give a fuck. It's camps of different types of capitalists and imperialists fighting each other over the spoils of the world. And we want to stop that. That's why we're socialists. And this is a similar problem you have today. You see it today. Whenever somebody is like, I don't want to see NATO go away, that person is a chauvinist. That person is a campist. They want the U.S. empire to continue to dominate the world. And it's more important to them than whatever supposed leftism or progressivism they espouse.
Chauvinism and Trotskyism.
Did it make Tacoma weep? No.
The February Revolution of 1917, which overthrew Tsarism and established a bourgeois republic, marked the beginning of a new phase in the revolutionary struggle. Within a few days, Russia was transformed into a democratic bourgeois republic, freer in war conditions than any other country in the world. However, even at the height of Russia's revolutionary movement, the Mensheviks, social revolutionaries, and Second International continued to deny the significance of the Bolshevik model or Soviet rule. Bolshevik victory was the result of decades of theoretical development and practical experience, which allowed them to navigate the complexities of the class struggle and emerge victorious. Lenin emphasizes that certain lessons were crucial for Bolshevik success, and have universal applicability that must be replicated elsewhere, such as the ability to combine legal and illegal work, adapt to changing circumstances, and maintain a clear revolutionary line. Experience has proven that on certain very important questions of proletarian revolution, all countries...
Yeah, maybe it's campus, but some more years would have helped Ukraine to maybe survive. I have a serious question for you. Do you think NATO, an organization set up to kill people like you, is just right on this one? They got this one right? Or do you think it maybe perhaps the war in Ukraine didn't need to happen because of, and it started because of U.S. interference and U.S. aggression, and it was demonstrating all across the world and continues to demonstrate to this day with the 17 covert wars we're currently waging and the 800 foreign military bases? Do you think maybe perhaps that Ukraine isn't that different than many other conflicts that have exploded around the world, and that perhaps something like, hey, we promise that Ukraine remains neutral and NATO will not expand there? Do you really think that was such an extreme ask? And now we are in a situation where the tankies said, if they do get into if America does put Ukraine into a war with Russia, if we continue to trot across the red lines that the Russians laid out very clearly, and it does force a war, it'll be a devastating war that damages the entire world. Why do you think AfD did so well in Germany? Why do you think Donald Trump won re-election? The Ukraine war is the reason why. Because the European economy was crushed and the American economy was crushed by inflation, which in large part was due to the fact that oil and gas prices skyrocketed, and that crushed German manufacturing, putting them into a recession. And then they did austerity on top of it. And who became the convenient scapegoats? Foreigners, leftists, immigrants, queer people. And now you have a fascist party growing exponentially in Europe, in Germany. Do you think perhaps saying NATO shouldn't expand to Ukraine was that big of an ask? NATO itself might collapse. You ushered in AfD and Donald Trump into the White House, and you still don't question anything that went on? What is it going to take?
Will inevitably have to do what Russia has done.
Why do people like Josh Shapiro? They're far right.
Lenin identifies two primary enemies Bolshevism faced within the working class movement: opportunism, which evolved into social chauvinism during World War I, and petty bourgeois revolutionism, which often took on anarchist tendencies. He argues that these two forces, though seemingly opposed, complemented each other and posed significant challenges.
Here's what I need to explain to you. This is what anybody who disagrees with what I'm about to read, it's fine, but I want you to understand something. You're not on the left, okay? If you disagree with what I'm about to explain to you, that's fine. Just you need to reconceptualize yourself as not a left-winger, okay? Since World War II, the public has had at best a minor influence on the conception and execution of U.S. foreign policy. All of the major strategic decisions made by U.S. elites after 1945 to spend an enormous amount on the military, to build a global empire of bases, to deploy hundreds of thousands of troops abroad, to intervene repeatedly in the politics and economies of other countries have been made with only passing reference to public opinion. Even Congress, the institutional representative of the people's will, has been a secondary player in U.S. foreign policy and war making. Indeed, the last time Congress declared war was on June 4th, 1942 against Bulgaria, Hungary, and Romania, despite the fact that between 1946 and 2019, the United States intervened abroad with the threat, display, or direct usage of force 216 times. Though the language of mass politics continues to permeate U.S. discourse and influence how Americans conceive of their political role, when it comes to foreign policy, we do not live in a mass democracy, and we haven't for almost a century. You're talking about Ukraine like you're in the club. You're not in the club.
To the revolutionary proletariat. Lenin says that opportunists within the working class movement betrayed the proletariat by siding with their own bourgeois governments, justifying imperialism and war under the guise of defending the fatherland. Opportunism's transformation into social chauvinism during World War I was Bolshevism's principal enemy and was not confined to Russia, but was a global phenomenon, as seen in the actions of leaders within the Second International, such as Kautsky and the German Social Democrats. The second tendency that the Bolshevik Party had been struggling against since 1903 was petty bourgeois revolutionism, less well known internationally, but equally significant. This tendency was often infused with anarchist ideas and appealed to small proprietors and the petty bourgeoisie who suffered under capitalism and were prone to revolutionary extremes.
Wait, I still got water.
But it lacked the discipline, organization, and steadfastness required for a sustained proletarian struggle. As Lenin says, a petty bourgeois class driven to frenzy by the horrors of capitalism is a social phenomenon which, like anarchism, is characteristic of all capitalist societies. However, this revolutionary fervor is unstable and often leads to submission, apathy.
And this, ladies and gentlemen, is really, really important stuff. This is why I'm so anti-anarchist, because look at the social movements in America on the left in the last 25, 30 years. We're talking about the Black Lives Matter movement. We're talking about Occupy Wall Street. We're talking about Bernie Sanders' revolution. It was all a spasm. And then the energy dissipated, and then it's gone. And that's what it looks like when you don't have organization, when you don't have actual systems that build on each other and build up with leadership and a continual process. What happened with Black Lives Matter? The biggest institution is a scam set up by a couple women in LA, and they used it to make themselves landlords. They took a bunch of white people, dumb white people's money. Occupy Wall Street got evicted by the cops and went away. I mean, even the protests, the pro-Palestinian protests, they have been ruthlessly suppressed.
Or even support.
Becoming conscious is linked to mobilization and organization, something we mentioned last year. We must make clear distinctions between mobilizers and organizers. To be an organizer, you must be a mobilizer, but being a mobilizer doesn't make you an organizer. Much confusion is to be found here. Malcolm X was a great mobilizer. He was a great organizer. Martin Luther King was a great mobilizer. He was not a great organizer. These facts can be easily seen from King and Malcolm. When Malcolm went to a place, he left a mosque. When King went to demonstrations, he broke down desegregation and he moved on. As a matter of fact, King was not concerned with organization to the point that even though he was the most popular Baptist preacher in America, without the shadow of a doubt, and probably beyond the shadow of a doubt the most loved, he could not become president of the National Baptist Convention. Yeah, so many of them. The National Baptist Convention. As a matter of fact, if my memory serves me correctly now, and I remember it was Muhammad Speaks that carried the article on the front page in 1964 when King tried to become president of the National Baptist Convention. There was so much confusion there that a minister was actually pushed off the stage and died in the struggle. Yeah. And of course, King lost. The man who won was a reactionary man by the name of Jackson. He never did nothing for the people, never cared about the people, just was a pork chop minister who used their money to put gas in his big Cadillac. But he was organized. That
is, I mean, that is the Democratic Party in a nutshell. Pork chop minister. That's it. That's the Democrat. That is the Andrew Cuomo. That is the Kamala Harris. That is the Joe Biden. That is the Hakeem Jeffries. That's what it is. It's about enriching themselves. They don't give a fuck. That's it.
We say that we must come to know the difference between mobilization and organization because the enemy will use mobilization to demobilize us. Mobilization is very easy. Very, very easy. Because since we're people who are instinctively ready to respond against acts of injustice, anytime there's one little act of injustice, we can blow it up and we'll find people who come and make some mass demonstration around it. Miss Sally lost her job. Let's rally. She'll get her job back. People will come and rally. So-and-so got kicked out of school because the teacher's unjust. The people will come and rally. They will come to rally at issues. And this is what mobilization does. It mobilizes people around issues. Those of us who are revolutionary are not concerned with issues. We're concerned with the system. The difference must be properly understood. The difference must be properly understood. Mobilization usually leads for reform action, not to revolutionary action. If we would look scientifically at the October 16th million and more march, we would see clearly that this was a mobilized event, not an organized event. We must know clearly the difference between mobilization and organization. One of the characteristics of mobilization is that it is temporary. Organization is permanent and eternal. Clear differences must be made because the unconscious can usually be captured easily around one-issue items, around mobilization items, but it's hard to catch them around organization. But these unconscious must be brought to organization. We must transform mobilization to organization. We say the enemy will come and use mobilization to demobilize us. Many brothers and sisters who've been to the million and more march will say to you, I was there. Well, what are you doing today, my sister? I was there. There weren't too many sisters out there, but you know, with a million brothers together, you know where I had to be. I was there. Yes. And then, of course, you find brothers, yeah, I was there. I helped you. What are you doing today, brother? If we're not careful, we allow mobilization to become events. The struggle is never an event. It's a process, a continual, eternal process.
That's the situation that we're in.
Support for bourgeois fads. Lenin explains that the Bolsheviks had to wage a long and ruthless struggle against this tendency, particularly as embodied by Russia's Social Revolutionary Party, which rejected Marxism, embraced individual terrorism, and imitated the opportunism of European social democratic parties. Lenin notes that anarchism often emerged in reaction to the opportunist betrayals of the working class, with the two tendencies complementing each other rather than working against each other. In Russia, anarchist influence was relatively weak during the revolutions of 1905 and 1917, partly due to the Bolsheviks' uncompromising struggle against opportunism, but also partly because anarchism had already been discredited in Russia during the 1870s. Lenin highlights the Bolsheviks' ability to navigate complex challenges through tactical flexibility and a clear understanding of when to advance and when to retreat.
How can I mobilize in my country, and also the mobilization of USS socialist groups? A lot of these questions are really necessary and challenging questions for me. And I am pondering life at this moment of how I can do my mobilization work while also trying to find worthy organizing being done. And right now, everybody knows my default answers to these questions, which is to get involved with your local socialist and leftist organizations. But quite frankly, I am unsatisfied with the quality of these organizations. They just don't exist. There's nothing that is good right now that, and I don't say that to demotivate you. I want you to keep doing the work that you're doing and do more. It's just, we're in a really bad position. Like we've all become spectators. We all want to jump on a bandwagon. None of us wants to build the wagon. We've got to build the wagon. There isn't a wagon. I wish there was a wagon to jump onto. There is no wagon. The Western left doesn't exist.
He points to the Bolsheviks' participation in reactionary parliaments and legal workers' organizations as a necessary tactic to maintain the revolutionary core of Bolshevism during periods of reaction. In 1908, the left Bolsheviks were expelled from the party for refusing to participate in a reactionary parliament, basing their stance on the successful 1905 boycott. In 1905, the Bolsheviks had called for a boycott of the Tsar's consultative parliament, which was soon overthrown by the revolution. However, Lenin argues that the boycott was only correct because of the specific revolutionary conditions at the time, including mass strikes escalating into an uprising. But without similar conditions in 1908, the refusal to participate was a mistake. The boycott proved correct at the time, not because non-participation in reactionary parliaments is correct in general, but because we accurately appraised the objective situation, which was leading to the rapid development of the mass strikes, first into a political strike, then into a revolutionary strike, and finally into an uprising. It would, however, be highly erroneous to apply this experience blindly, imitatively, and uncritically to other conditions and other situations. Lenin also addresses the question of compromises, arguing that not all compromises are equal, and that revolutionaries must distinguish between those that are principled and those that amount to betrayal. He uses the example of the Brest-Litovsk Treaty, which the Bolsheviks signed under duress to buy time and preserve the revolution, contrasting it with the treacherous compromises made by the Mensheviks, social revolutionaries, and leaders of the Second International who sided with their own bourgeois governments against the proletariat as they actively collaborated to suppress the revolutionary movement. One must learn to distinguish between a man who has given up his money and firearms to a bandit so as to lessen the evil they can do and to facilitate their capture and execution, and a man who gives his money and firearms to bandits so as to share in the loot. Lenin begins by analyzing the German communist opposition, which criticizes the Communist Party's leadership role in the proletarian dictatorship. They ask, who is to exercise dictatorship, the Communist Party or the proletarian class? Lenin counters that such a question demonstrates incredibly and hopelessly muddled thinking, and argues that their position is confused and impractical. He insists that class struggle is led by political parties, which in turn are directed by experienced leadership groups. The German opposition's attempt to contrast the dictatorship of the leaders with the dictatorship of the masses ignores the reality that revolutionary organization is necessary to wield power effectively. Moreover, Lenin contextualizes this ideological deviation within broader historical patterns. He references Marx and Engels' analysis of Britain's labor aristocracy, explaining how privileged sections of the working class can produce opportunist and reformist tendencies. But at the same time, he notes that the ultra-left opposition represents the opposite extreme, an impractical purism that isolates revolutionaries from the working class. This rejection of political compromise and strategic maneuvering results in sectarianism, preventing meaningful revolutionary progress. A centralized communist party is not an authoritarian imposition, but a necessary structure for leading a successful revolution and ensuring the proletariat's long-term victory. Lenin criticizes the German lefts for their use of fashionable terms and failure to draw actionable lessons from the imperialist war, but particularly focuses on their refusal to engage in reactionary trade unions or parliament. The German left communists dismissed many trade unions as counter-revolutionary and advocated instead for the creation of new, pure workers' organizations. Lenin rebukes this position, calling it fundamentally wrong, built on empty phrases, and insisting that revolutionaries must work within existing structures to win over the masses rather than isolate themselves in ideological purity. Lenin argues that engagement in trade unions is not a matter of compromise but a strategic necessity. He explains that the Communist Party's influence in Russia is maintained through a network of trade unions, Soviets, and non-party workers and peasants' conferences. These institutions, though not inherently communist, function as channels through which the party educates and mobilizes the proletariat. Without the close involvement of trade unions, the Bolsheviks would not have been able to maintain their rule or carry out the highly complex and diversified work in the form of propaganda, agitation, and frequent conferences. Lenin further critiques the German lefts, as well as the IWW, for their abstract, idealist approach to revolution, arguing that socialism must be built with the human material bequeathed to us by capitalism, rather than expecting the immediate emergence of a proletariat free from ideological remnants of the past. Trade unions, despite many of their reactionary elements, remain indispensable schools of communism, where workers learn class struggle through practice. He says that a fully communist society is still a distance away, and the remnants of a capitalist society will remain for a period, and therefore, expecting all trade unions to reach full communist maturity overnight would be akin to teaching higher mathematics to a child of 4.
And like, I try to explain this to people, and why I hate, ultras and anarchists and stuff like that, and trots and everything like that. It's very important to understand that you have to meet people where they are, and you have to build a practical, realistic program that they can understand. This doesn't mean that we need to then vote for the Democrats. That's not what they're saying. This is saying that you have to actually understand what people need, and you have to address what they need, while at the same time educating them back. It's a two-way process. They communicate what their grievances are, they communicate what they need, and then you communicate the way to understand the world that has gotten to this point. You teach them class consciousness, you teach them solidarity, and it's a two-way process. It isn't just like, I know everything and I'm telling you everything and shut the fuck up, you reactionary racist. It is you want more time with your kids. You want to be able to afford food. You want a roof over your head. Those are the things that we need to practically be relevant in people's lives, not just a long list of why I'm a good person policies.
Lenin concludes by calling on the Communist International to condemn the German left's position, warning that their refusal to engage with reactionary unions plays into the hands of the bourgeoisie. He insists that revolutionaries must be willing to endure persecution, employ strategic maneuvers, and even work covertly if necessary to reach the masses. Abandoning the unions would be the greatest service communists could render to the bourgeoisie.
And that's why in America they banned communists from joining labor unions, because the bourgeoisie understood that is the threat. And ever since the communists have been banned, ever since the socialists have been banned from labor, what happened? They died out. They just became another service group, another fee collector.
The German left communists maintain that participating in parliamentary struggle is obsolete and represents a reversion to outmoded forms of political engagement, which Lenin also dismisses as both arrogant and misguided. He points out that Germany has not yet established a Soviet republic, making the notion of a reversion meaningless. Without an alternative structure of proletarian governance in place, abandoning parliamentary engagement amounts to political isolation rather than revolutionary progress. He acknowledges that bourgeois parliamentarianism is in decline from a historical standpoint, but warns against prematurely discarding it as a viable field of political struggle. Contrary to the opinion of such outstanding political leaders as Rosa Luxemburg and Karl Liebknecht, the German lefts, as we know, considered parliamentarianism politically obsolete. Even in January 1919, we know that the lefts were mistaken, and therefore it is for the lefts to prove why their error, indisputable at the time, is no longer an error. But they do not and cannot produce even a shred of proof.
This is
a political
why,
party's attitude.
If you've ever wondered, like, Mike, you hate the Democrats so much, why do you care about political elections so much? Why are you trying to find people that you can support, because that's where the people are, man. How could you say you care about politics if you don't engage in the electoral politics? But the question is, how do I push electoral politics in the direction where it will actually be useful for regular people?
Towards its own mistakes is one of the most important and surest ways of judging how earnest the party is and how it fulfills in practice its obligations towards its class and the working people.
It's a bad book, honestly.
Frankly, acknowledging a mistake, ascertaining the reasons for it, analyzing the conditions that have led up
something Vaush wrote between goon sessions. It's like it's probably one of the most overrated books of all time, honestly, if not the most overrated. Like, it just sucks.
Rashing out the means of its rectification, that is the hallmark of a serious party. That is how it should perform its duties, and how it should educate and train its class, and then the masses. Lenin argues that the key flaw in the German left's reasoning is that they mistake their ideological perspective for the objective conditions of the masses. Millions of German workers still support bourgeois parties, while the rural proletariat remains largely counter-revolutionary. Given this reality, the Communist Party must work within bourgeois institutions, including parliaments, to expose their limitations and bring revolutionary consciousness to the workers. The transition from capitalism to socialism requires a long and persistent fight.
Wait, what about if we just vote for Tim Walz? I can feel the socialism happening any minute now.
In which participation in bourgeois institutions can be an essential means of mobilizing the masses, and rejecting such participation is to abandon the very proletariat that communists aim to lead, leaving them under the influence of reactionary forces. Bolshevik experience provides a clear lesson on the necessity of engaging in parliamentary struggles. The Bolsheviks participated in elections in the Russian Constituent Assembly in late 1917, both before and after the October Revolution. Far from legitimizing bourgeois democracy, this tactic helped expose the limits of bourgeois parliament and prepared the masses for its eventual dissolution. Lenin also extends this critique to the Dutch left argument that says that parliamentary participation is undesirable in revolutionary situations. The Dutch thesis claims that parliamentary action loses importance during a revolution and that abstaining from parliament may be necessary when it becomes a counter-revolutionary organ. Lenin dismisses this stance as both historically and logically unsound, viewing this as opportunism and an emotional rather than strategic response. He emphasizes that even in reactionary parliaments, revolutionary participation can be beneficial, citing the Bolshevik experience in Russia, where parliamentary engagement helped prepare for the socialist revolution. Moreover, he warns against reducing valid revolutionary ideas to absurdity by overextending them. He stresses the necessity of engaging in difficult struggles, including utilizing reactionary parliaments to expose bourgeois illusions and win over the working class, particularly in Western Europe, where bourgeois democratic prejudices remain strong. By establishing a communist presence in these institutions, revolutionaries can confront reactionary forces directly and educate the masses about the need for Soviet power. Ignoring this tactical necessity, however, would leave the bourgeoisie unchallenged and allow them to maintain control over working-class consciousness. The German left communists also embrace a rigid rejection of compromises, which Lenin sees as a fundamental misunderstanding of Marxist strategy. The refusal to engage in strategic compromises, he argues, is not revolutionary but rather a form of political immaturity that weakens the proletariat's ability to wage an effective struggle against capitalism. Drawing from Engels' critique of the Blankist communards, Lenin highlights the fallacy of believing that communism can be achieved merely by rejecting intermediate stages and compromises. The Blankists identified themselves as communists.
By the way, do you guys know what the French Commune is? If you don't, then I would consider you to be on the basic tier level of knowledge.
Because they wanted to attain their political goals without stopping at intermediate stations, without any compromises, which they believed would automatically lead to the immediate establishment of communism. Following Engels, Lenin applies this critique to the German lefts, emphasizing that historical development inevitably produces compromises, and the task of Marxists is not to reject them outright, but to engage with them critically and tactically. Lenin points out that workers, especially those involved in strikes, understand the necessity of compromises. A strike settlement may not achieve all demands, but it does not signal a betrayal. The key distinction lies between compromises that arise from material necessity and those that represent a surrender to bourgeois interests. revolutionaries must be able to differentiate between the two and avoid dogmatic rejection of all political maneuvering. It would be absurd to formulate a recipe or general rule to suit all cases.
That's what people want from you, by the way. But they want panaceas. They don't like that a doctor has to have like more than one pill. You know, give me the magic pill. Don't tell me that what you need to do changes based on the conditions. Tell me the magic easy hint.
And that rejecting compromises outright is strategically disastrous. In revolutionary struggle, the proletariat often finds itself in a weaker position compared to the bourgeoisie, which possesses extensive international support and economic resources. To succeed, the proletariat must exploit divisions among the bourgeoisie, form tactical alliances, and maneuver skillfully rather than adopt a rigid and inflexible approach. By refusing all compromises, the German left fails to recognize that temporary agreements with wavering elements can help to isolate reactionary forces and strengthen the working class's position. Those who do not understand this reveal a failure to understand even the smallest grain of Marxism, of modern scientific socialism in general. Bolshevik history, Lenin argues, is filled with examples of tactical compromises. Before and after the October Revolution, the Bolsheviks engaged in alliances and maneuvers with various political forces, including peasant groups, Mensheviks, and even bourgeois liberals when it served the larger goal of revolutionary success. At key moments, such as the signing of the Brest-Litovsk Treaty, the Bolsheviks accepted painful compromises to safeguard the revolution. This kind of strategic flexibility is essential for any revolutionary movement aiming to win power and maintain it in the face of counter-revolutionary threats. Lenin insists that revolutionary strategy must be based on a clear understanding of shifting political forces and the need to influence broad masses of workers rather than on rigid sectarianism. The left's rejection of engagement with the independent Social Democrats is a case in point. While the independent Social Democrats contained opportunist elements, it also attracted workers moving leftward from the mainstream Social Democratic Party. Instead of engaging with these workers and winning them to communism, the German lefts dismissed them altogether, weakening their own movement and leading them into political isolation. Lenin notes that capitalism creates a diverse and stratified working class, with various intermediate groups between the proletariat and small property owners. This complexity necessitates that the Communist Party adopt flexible tactics, including conciliation and compromises, to unify and elevate proletarian class consciousness and revolutionary potential. The Bolsheviks successfully used such tactics against the Mensheviks both before and after the October Revolution, strengthening their position while isolating opportunist leaders. Finally, Lenin critiques the German left's refusal to recognize the Treaty of Versailles, which demonstrates an inability to distinguish between principled opposition and tactical necessity, as well as an overall naive approach to international politics. Lenin posits that if a Soviet Germany were to emerge, it might need to temporarily recognize the treaty, just as Soviet Russia had to accept the Brest-Litovsk Treaty under duress. To refuse any such recognition in advance is to surrender flexibility and hand the initiative to the bourgeoisie. The political landscape of early 20th century Britain saw the emergence of a strong and rapidly growing communist movement among the working class. While no unified communist party had yet been established, several socialist organizations, including the British Socialist Party, the Socialist Labour Party, the South Wales Socialist Society, and the Workers' Socialist Federation, were engaged in negotiations.
Why this Lenin guy got so many good ideas? I wonder if he was massively successful. No. Listen. You need to read the guy who is a professor at the American Military Industrial Complex Production Factory, MIT. He's going to tell you this guy was bad because he won. And everyone knows a true communist never wins.
Negotiations to form such a party. According to the Workers' Dreadnought, a publication edited by Sylvia Pankhurst, the aim was to create a communist party that would align with the Third International, reject parliamentarism in favor of the Soviet system, and endorse the dictatorship of the proletariat. However, significant divisions existed among these groups, particularly on the question of parliamentary participation and whether the Communist Party should affiliate with the Labour Party, which was dominated by the trade unions. The Workers' Socialist Federation and the Socialist Labour Party rejected parliamentary elections and affiliation with Labour, viewing the British Socialist Party as the right wing of the Communist parties for its willingness to engage in electoral politics. These divisions mirrored similar debates in Germany, though the context and historical conditions in Britain differed. One of the most vocal critics of parliamentary participation was the Scottish Workers' Council, which argued that parliamentary participation would enable reactionary leaders to consolidate power. Any support given to parliamentarianism is simply assisting to put power into the hands of our British exploiters. The position of the Scottish Workers' Council reflected a broader frustration with reformist leaders and a desire for revolutionary alternatives rooted in direct workers' control. However, Lenin critiques this rigid anti-parliamentarian stance, warning that while revolutionary enthusiasm is essential, it must be coupled with strategic political engagement. He acknowledges that the Scottish Workers' Council expresses a noble and working-class hatred of the bourgeois class politicians, but that politics is an art and science that requires tactical maneuvering. Lenin's central argument is that the British communists should participate in parliamentary action and help workers experience firsthand the failures of Labour's reformist leadership. He states that, to lead the way without compromises, without turning, this slogan is obviously wrong if it comes from a patently impotent minority of workers. He suggests that if Labour, under Henderson and Snowden, assumes power, their inevitable failures will disillusion workers and push them towards communism. Thus, communist participation in elections would serve to support Henderson in the same way that a rope supports a hangman. This strategy aligns with Lenin's broader theory of revolutionary change, which holds that mass consciousness shifts through political experience rather than propaganda alone. He emphasizes that revolution is impossible without a change in the views of the majority of the working class, a change that is brought about by direct engagement in political struggle. He also highlights the importance of exploiting divisions among the ruling class, revealing the bourgeoisie's growing fear of Labour's rise. If communists tactically support Labour against the conservatives, they can accelerate both Labour's exposure as a failed reformist force and the working class's shift towards revolution. Lenin advocates for a conditional electoral agreement between communists and Labour, where they would jointly oppose the conservative-liberal alliance while maintaining complete communist freedom of agitation and critique. If Labour accepts, communists gain a platform, but if they refuse, it exposes them as unwilling to break with capitalism. Either outcome benefits the communist cause. In one of the most economically backward capitalist countries, the Russian bourgeois revolution of 1905 marked a significant turning point in world history. During the first month of 1905 alone, the number of strikes was at an unprecedented scale, reaching 10 times the annual average of the preceding decade. By 1917, strikes continually increased in magnitude.
I got into a huge argument with local folks the other day using the same order you're sharing, Mike. Nobody's going to save us but us. They were going off, try to solve the problem at the level of the problem won't solve the problem. What? One of the things that is everybody's disconnected. That's the crisis is we no longer are unified in communities anymore. Everybody has the internet has successfully atomized everybody into neoliberal subjects where all they do is they consume what they want to consume and they don't engage with the larger world, and they don't read or challenge themselves. Everyone's very comfortable.
Culminating in the mass political upheaval that led to the October Revolution. Under unique historical conditions, Russia not only demonstrated the spontaneous mass participation of the oppressed classes in a revolutionary period, as seen in all major revolutions, but also revealed the profound role of the proletariat. Despite its relatively small size in comparison to the total population, the proletariat combined economic strikes with political strikes that ultimately escalated into armed struggle. Furthermore, the birth of the Soviets, a novel form of mass organization and struggle, signaled the emergence of a new political structure in opposition to capitalism. The history of the working class movement reveals that in all countries, communism continues to engage in an essential struggle against two principal adversaries, opportunism and left-wing communism. This global ideological struggle, as seen in the struggle between the Second and Third International, is a testament to the international nature of proletarian revolution. The rapid rise of communist movements in advanced capitalist states, as well as the Third International's decisive victory, underscores the need for communism to balance an adaptive approach to achieving fundamental aims. The failure of the Second International was not only due to its reformism, but also its inability to provide centralized and effective leadership for the global proletariat. The Third International must avoid this mistake by applying Soviet power and proletarian dictatorship in ways that respect economic, political and cultural distinctions while identifying concrete transitional stages to advance the revolutionary cause. The ideological alignment of the proletarian vanguard with Soviet power marks a crucial achievement, but victory demands more than ideological commitment. The broad masses of the working class must actively support the revolution.
I feel like when you talk to people using this vernacular, bourgeois, proletariat, class consciousness, it's like they shut their brains down and think you're crazy. How do you contend with this? I don't use those words because they're not words regular people use. I'll give you an analogy to help you all out. I want to, and I think that's actually a really good point. Here's what I want you to understand. This is like, what's a good analogy? It's like being a doctor, right? And saying you have a myocardial infarction. Are you feeling angina? No, you say you're having a heart attack. Do you feel chest pain? Okay, that's so you're right. I don't go to normal people and go, you know, the proletariat, the bourgeoisie, you know, the lumpen proletariat, and we have to do blah, 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 blah. Of course not. This is the reason why we use these terms is because it's a term of art among revolutionaries talking about revolutionaries shit. When you're talking to a normal person who's not already a revolutionary, you're actually confusing them when you use shit they don't understand. So don't. If you're trying to convince someone in the necessity of a class conscious politics, you talk about the millionaires, you talk about the billionaires, you talk about the bosses, you talk about unions, you talk about wages, you talk about vacations and benefits and policies that will actually make that are relevant to their life. What was the slogan of the Bolsheviks? Do you guys remember? Peace, land, bread. Peace, land, bread. Very simple, very straightforward. Our slogan shouldn't be a revolutionary class consciousness building and, you know, internationalist blah. It should be housing for all, Medicare for all, bam, bing, you know, healthcare, housing, education, whatever. That is the type of shit you should be talking about. And by the way, what things you pick, you shouldn't know that yet. You should be going to people and talking to them about the issues because that's how they interface with the world, which is valid, right? And then you apply dialectical materialism, you apply the class consciousness lens, you teach it to them, and then before you know it, they're fighting with you. This is my mission. This is my mission.
I'm giving you a choice. Either put on these glasses or start eating that trash can.
I already am eating from the trash can all the time. The name of this trash can is ideology. The material force of ideology makes me not see what I'm effectively eating. It's not only our reality which enslaves us. The tragedy of our predicament when we are within ideology is that when we think that we escape it into our dreams, at that point we are within ideology.
They Live from 1988 is definitely one of the forgotten masterpieces of the Hollywood left. It tells the story of John Nada. Nada, of course, in Spanish means nothing, a pure subject, deprived of all substantial content, a homeless worker in LA who, drifting around, one day enters into an abandoned church and finds there a strange box full of sunglasses. And when he put one of them on, walking along the LA streets, he discovers something weird. That these glasses function like critique of ideology glasses. They allow you to see the real message beneath all the propaganda, publicity, glitz, posters, and so on. You see a large publicity board telling you have your holiday of a lifetime, and when you put the glasses on, you see just on the white background a gray inscription. We live, so we are told, in a post-ideological society. We are interpellated, that is to say, addressed by social authority, not as subjects who should do their duty, sacrifice themselves, but subjects of pleasures. Realize your true potential, be yourself, lead a satisfying life. When you put the glasses on, you see dictatorship in democracy. It's the invisible order which sustains your apparent freedom. The explanation for the existence of this strange ideology glasses is the standard story of the invasion of the body snatchers. Humanity is already under the control of aliens.
Hey, buddy. You gonna pay for that or what? Look, buddy, I don't want no hassle today. Either pay for it or put it back.
According to our common sense, we think that ideology is something blurring, confusing our straight view. Ideology should be glasses which distort our view. And the critique of ideology should be the opposite, like you take off the glasses so that you can finally see the way things really are. This precisely, and here the pessimism of the film, of They Live, is well justified. This precisely is the ultimate illusion. Ideology is not simply imposed on ourselves. Ideology is our spontaneous relationship to our social world, how we perceive its meaning, and so on and so on. We, in a way, enjoy our ideology.
All right.
To step out of ideology, it hurts. It's a painful experience. You must force yourself to do it. This is rendered in a wonderful way.
This is my job right now, chat. And this is you. This is the chatters. This is every day of my life. This is me. I'm screaming to you, put the glasses on! And you're punching back. No, I have to vote Democrat. No! Vote blue! Who should run in 2028? You don't have a... What's your strategy on that? This is you. This is every single objection. I'm saying...
A further scene in the film where John Nada tries to force his best friend, John Armitage, to also put the glasses on.
I don't want to fight you. Come on. I don't want to fight you. Stop it. No!
And it's the weirdest scene in the film. The fight takes 8-9 minutes.
Put on the glasses.
It may appear irrational, because why does this guy reject so violently to put the glasses on? It is as if he is well...
Every liberal in my replies. Every liberal in my replies. This is how I see them. I'm just like, oh, come on, put the glasses on.
Where that spontaneously he lives in a lie, that the glasses will make him see the truth, but that this truth can be painful, can shatter many of your illusions.
And that's it. The reason why people get mad at me is because I'm telling them to shatter their illusions about what the Democratic Party represents and who these people are, who Hakeem Jeffries is, who Tim Walz is, who Kamala Harris is. These people are not on your team. They don't fuck with you. Why are you fucking with them? They don't have any goals. They are aliens here to extract. Are you gonna do something about the two fascists disrupting chat? Stop whining. Watch to understand MAGA communism better. All right, hold on.
What the hell is MAGA communism? MAGA communism was a meme created in 2022 by the infrared community in response to the Dark Brandon meme. So, MAGA communism is a joke? No, Brian. Memes aren't always made to be unserious. Memes can effectively communicate a message, just how historian Peter pointed out. Okay, but isn't MAGA communism a contradictive term? The contradiction is only apparent. What infrared was trying to do with MAGA communism is no different than what Marxist-Leninists have done in every successful revolution. It's taking the ideas of Marxism-Leninism and meeting the working class at the level of consciousness they're at, which today is in MAGA. But MAGA is against communism. They will never be open to communism. In 2016, MAGA had a blue-collar majority base in which their tendencies can be considered historically left-wing tendencies, abolition of the three-letter agencies such as the FBI and the CIA, bringing back industrial jobs, bringing the troops back home, ending American globalism, also known as imperialism, pulling out of NATO. The list goes on and on. Marx said the following, as the first form of the proletarian movement made necessary under certain specific conditions, as a movement based upon the living conditions of a class which necessarily must become communist. Communist tendencies in America must originally appear in this seemingly anti-communist agrarian form. Keep in mind, Brian, that this meme was made...
Americans are not agrarian at all, bro. Come on. What are you talking about? They are consumers in a post-imperial bounty. You know, the MAGA communists are... Okay, come on, man. Like, this is so funny. Come on, man. Like, I get it. I think there is one insight in MAGA communism that is why they have any level of success, and I want to acknowledge them. Has his most... This is when... Oh, yeah, we're going to watch this as well. Hold on. There are only 2 holes.
You doubted me, but I saw 2 with my own eyes. There are only 2 holes. Whoa! There are only 2 holes. Whoa! There are only 2 holes. Whoa! There are only 2 holes. Whoa!
I thought you were going to send me the one thing he did that was really cool. I didn't think you were going to send me the only 2 holes song. I thought you were going to tell me the one good thing. Okay, anyway, what was I saying? Oh yeah, MAGA communism. They are right about one thing, which is that working class people hate liberals. And that's just true. But I think the problem is they don't understand how to react to that fact, right? They have the same visceral hatred of liberals that the like MAGA base does. And the thing is, they're fixating on the reactionary element as opposed to the apolitical element of working class voters. Most people in working class are just not interested in politics. They have the lowest level of participation. And they fixated on the reactionary element because they're actually engaging in political talks. Because they're not about actually changing anything. It's about getting an influencer attention. It's about getting an influencer attention. That is the entire point of MAGA communism. To get some of the dumbest influencers attention because their shit doesn't make any sense and everybody yells at them. But it doesn't matter. You know, you're just trying to feed yourself. You don't need to do a political movement, right? If you get a couple thousand dummies to give you money, that's enough to live off of. That's all it's about. It doesn't have to be coherent. That being said, I was really bummed out when they went in this direction. I was really bummed out when they went in this direction. Because I saw this and I was like, oh, hell yeah, we've needed somebody like this.
Well, you're just talking like a Mongoloid.
I don't give a f***. I am a Mongoloid. In my heart, I'm a Mongoloid. That is what I am. We are a horde. That is what we are. Yes, we are that. We are 100% that.
That's not something to be proud of.
It is something to be proud of, because the Mongols are the ones who created civilization. And you created nothing but barbarism. You're the fucking barbarians. You destroyed the treasures of mankind. The Mongols only united it. What the fuck do you know about civilization? What the fuck do you know about pride? What the fuck do you have to be proud of? Except looting, genociding, and destroying the cultures and peoples and wealth of this world. What the fuck do you know, Cans Cuck?
Well, you're the one here chimping out, so...
I am chipping out, bitch, because I'm a fucking human being, and you're a little soy boy cuck little bitch. You don't know who the fuck I am.
No, I see you. I think you're a Mongoloid. That's what you...
I am a Mongoloid. You're right. It is what I am, and I'm proud of being that.
Well, it's an anthropological term. It doesn't actually mean Mongol.
Oh, so what's your fucking point? You ugly, disgusting, fucking barbarian, smelly piece of shit. You want to talk racism? I can be way more racist than you, Angloid. What fucking civilizations did Angloids ever fucking have? It needed the Romans to fuck all of you in your ass to give you any civilization. You never had any of your own. You want to be racist? I could be way more racist. You want to talk shit about Asians? What the fuck do you have on Asia, huh?
I have nothing on it.
You have nothing, because you're a Cans Cuck, bitch.
Fuck, man. Like, this This is the, I mean, like, honest to God, I can be like, this is, when that first came out, I was like, hell yeah, dude, infrared, let's fucking go. Awesome. That was hilarious. But unfortunately, his brain got rotted. And what happened with him is he went from being kind of an interesting creator to, he went on Destiny shows. And then he made friends with this disgusting pedophile by the name of, God damn it, what's his name? I forgot his fucking name. He's like a weirdo sex creep. Zerka, thank you. Okay. Yeah. Then he was like in the Zerka orbit. And he was, you know, he was hanging around like 150 viewers. And they just became like dumber and dumber. And they were chasing like clout through debate panels and shit. And then they stopped caring about like trying to like make an argument. And then MAGA communism, they created that just to troll liberals. And it just became, kind of pointless to pay attention to at that point. And I was just like, okay. And then Hinkle got promoted by the Russian government and went super viral on Twitter. You know, just pretending to be pro-Palestine. When prior, like a year or two before, he had been like, look at Netanyahu hanging out with Putin, what a king. So like his fake pro-Palestinian shit. That's what really triggered me. Most shit didn't bother me, but when they were like pumping up Netanyahu, like that's when I was like, oh, fuck these guys. And now they've like pivoted back to being pro-Palestine because that's, yet again, it's just about making money for influencers, right? And that's the problem with them, you know? The energy was good, but it's just been diverted into how do I make money, you know, by saying shit that pisses people off. So that's, you know, the ACP MAGA communism guys, really disappointing. Waste of what it could have been a smart creator, and he became rotted by the internet. Which sucks. Which sucks. You know, and then he got famous for saying women only had 2 holes. That was really funny. Because he was in the Destiny Zerka mentality of like, you know, just to the scum of the earth of streaming. Just the brain rot. You hate to see it. Anyway, let's go back to this.
This is a paradox we have to accept.
The glasses! Oh! Put them on!
The extreme violence of liberation. You must be forced to be free. If you trust simply your spontaneous sense of well-being or whatever, you will never get free.
What?
Freedom hurts.
This is all I'm trying to do.
To be free. Sense of well-being.
This is me. This is the stream. Me putting you guys in a headlock and putting the glasses on. Can you tell me what Tim Walz did bad for Minnesota? The question that you need to ask yourself is, why did Kamala Harris perform so poorly in Minnesota? You're asking me, why don't you ask Minnesotans why they didn't like them that much? Why is the Democratic Party in disarray and basically losing what used to be one of the most progressive places in the country? Kamala won Minnesota? Yeah, I know. I didn't say she lost it. I said she did bad. She massively underperformed Joe Biden. Big drop in turnout, big drop in support. Pathetic.
Or at the very least, adopt a neutral stance that prevents them from siding with the bourgeoisie. This transition cannot be accomplished solely through propaganda. It must emerge from the masses' direct political experience.
Labor deals, one for Uber workers and one for nurses. Yeah, I know. The reality is that Tim Walz is what the most right-wing Democrat should look like. And you have a bunch of people who call themselves left-wingers saying that he's good now. Can you name one leftist policy he passed? Like leftist.
Historical law of all great revolutions, confirmed in both Russia and Germany, dictates that workers must first witness the impotence, treachery, and servility of social democratic leaders before fully embracing communism. The immediate objective of the communist movement is to bridge the gap between the vanguard and the broader proletariat. The task of communist leadership is to guide apathetic workers, disillusioned by bourgeois democracy, toward revolutionary action. The first step, the ideological defeat of opportunism, has been achieved. The second step, the mass mobilization of workers, demands the rejection of leftist rigidity and a commitment to strategic flexibility. The correct movement for insurrection arises when the ruling class is in crisis, the bourgeoisie is divided, the petty bourgeoisie has discredited itself, and the proletariat has developed the determination necessary for a decisive confrontation. At this point, hesitation is fatal. Political conflicts among bourgeois factions may seem trivial from the standpoint of pure communism. However, in practical revolutionary politics, these divisions are crucial for communists to exploit in order to accelerate the downfall of social democratic opportunists and ensure that the workers learn from their betrayal. Revolutions are never entirely predictable. History is more complex, dynamic, and multifaceted than any theoretical model. The revolutionary class must therefore master every available form of struggle, both legal and illegal, depending on changing political conditions. Rigid adherence to either form is a mistake, as true revolutionaries must adapt their methods to shifting circumstances. It is easy to be a revolutionary when mass upheaval is underway, but the real challenge lies in advancing the revolutionary cause under non-revolutionary conditions, including within reactionary institutions. Britain presents a compelling case. No one can predict the precise catalyst that will ignite proletarian revolution in Britain, whether it be a parliamentary crisis, imperialist contradiction, or other unexpected factor. However, communists must be prepared on all fronts. The experience of the French Dreyfus affair, which nearly provoked civil war, illustrates how seemingly minor political events can lead to mass upheaval. The task of communists in Britain, therefore, is to penetrate all spheres of social life, parliamentary elections, labor unions, colonial struggles, and infuse them with revolutionary content. In wake of the Russian Revolution, the international bourgeoisie has been thrown into crisis. The panic of the ruling class, evidenced by anti-communist crackdowns across Europe and America, reveal the deep-seated crisis of imperialism.
I saw a reply, basically one of your threads, of someone going, so free breakfast isn't leftist policy and defensive walls? Actual literal crumbs. Listen, I like free food programs. I think they're great. But that is not fundamentally altering our political situation. That is not creating substantive, material, political organization that can challenge the status quo or the capitalist class. Feeding kids is good. I'd be in favor of that program, and I'm glad it happened. But it isn't. But it's literally crumbs, right? It's not guaranteeing food for every American. It's not It's not attacking the commodification of housing. It is a on the borders marginal program that is good, but it's not fundamentally left wing or leftist, and that it doesn't alter or challenge the organizations of our society or of our economy, and it doesn't create a pathway to challenge them. It is just it's a good program I support, yay, but it doesn't mean that that's the guy I want to lead the fucking world.
Terrified of Bolshevism, it has resorted to frenzied repression. But ironically, this reactionary overreach to suppress revolution aids the communist struggle by drawing unprecedented attention to Bolshevism and inadvertently accelerating its spread. The world revolution, accelerated by the crises of imperialism and war, is progressing rapidly, providing both the opportunity and the necessity for flexible, strategic action. Through this, the communist movement can overcome left-wing extremism and achieve global victory for Soviet power and proletarian dictatorship, but such rapid transformation of political conditions demands a flexible approach. Revolutionary victory will be secured not through rigid formulas, but through a creative application of communist principles to an ever-changing reality.
We love Red Pen YouTube chat. I really like them. I would say it is... I wouldn't say that these are highly entertaining videos, but I would say they are highly educational. So who doesn't like that? All right. Gosh, we've been streaming for 3 hours. All right. What kind of candy should we eat? All right, let's maul. You know what? Let's mauled. AOC talking to NPR. This is gonna put me in a bad mood. So let's put myself even more of a bad mood. AOC on NPR. Let's go. AOC is somebody who, quite frankly, is what I like to call squandered potential, which is she has ensconced herself with the most annoying rad lib culture of DC. So her takes are going to be bad. But hey, maybe she'll surprise me.
is one of the Democratic Party's biggest stars. When she was first elected in 2018, she was very much an outsider, a social media phenomenon, often a critic of her party's programs and leaders. Now she's seen as more of an insider, a somewhat more senior figure, still a big star. And so we brought her here to Studio One to...
Wow, she's seen as more of an insider. Wow, great. And what did that get her? Fucking nothing.
Ask what she thinks her party can do with its current
leadership position.
Dilemma. Democrats are out of power in Washington. They're watching President Trump enact his agenda, and they know the president has great appeal with a large part of their traditional base, the working class, people Ocasio-Cortez would feel that she would like to represent. Here's some of our conversation. And I want to begin with how you see your party as an opposition party at the moment. If you had to pick one word,
Pathetic.
what is a word that describes
Losers.
the state of your party right?
Losers, pathetic, disarray, unorganized, capitulating, compromisers, collaborators, losers, failures, scared.
No.
Complicit.
I think a word to describe the state of the party is...
All right, off the bat, it's making me laugh right off the bat. Because she's thinking all the thoughts I said, and she's like, okay, I can't say losers, pathetic, failures, capitulating. She's got to be like, she's going to say something like in flux, transitional,
Resolved? If I had to pick...
Resolved. They're saying how they need to surrender.
One word, it would be resolved.
It's not shocked
That's
or...
the worst word I've ever heard. What? She thought that long and delivered resolved? Come on, man. You've been at this a while. Alex, you've been at this a while. You got to do better than resolved.
Dismayed or anything like that at this moment?
I mean, in
on
this
the defensive?
moment, I think we've moved through shock. I think we've moved through dismay. I think we've moved through the 5 stages of grief. I think we've moved through that defensiveness. But it is, I think, a rapidly evolving situation. And I would say this week, especially in the light of last night's budget vote, the moment right now today is resolved.
We're talking here on a Wednesday, the night before there was this budget vote. Every single Democrat voted no. Do you consider that an accomplishment, that your party was united, even if it was united in a no?
Yes. I mean, of course, if we were not united in yesterday's vote, I think we would be
Have
in
you
far...
considered the fact that the party of bipartisanship never being able to convince any Republicans to ever join in with your nose might say something about how fucking pathetic you are? Have you considered that?
Far deeper trouble. But the fact that there is this much unity...
you would do the same thing? I could never be in this situation. I could never be in this situation because I speak my mind too openly.
It's important. It is, I think, a baseline prerequisite for the moment to come and the fight over Medicaid, Medicare, and frankly, huge swaths of the American economy.
Do you assume that Republicans are going to give you the issues that are going to allow you to come back?
I do not make that assumption. I do not believe that.
Okay, thank God. Thank God there's still some AOC left inside. Thank God. What he's asking her, by the way, the reason why I'm pausing so much is because this is so funny already. But basically what he's asking her is an assumption that the Democrats are making. The big assumption that Democrats are making is that, and this is true, thermostatic opinion. People are just going to react against Trump and they're going to vote for Democrats because they're the only other choice, right? Like that is basically what she is saying. Or that's what the Democrats are saying. And she's saying, no, I don't think that's true. I don't think we could just assume we're going to win. Because the other Democrats, they don't want to make any changes. They just want to sit around and then be handed the majority again, like they were in 2018. They just want to wait 2 years and then they'll get handed the majority again. And they can go back to grifting. All right? That's what they want to do. They don't want to do anything different than they've been doing. They want to do the same strategy they've been doing since 1988. Republican light.
elections are given. I don't think of them. I know many people think of them as natural pendulum swings, and I completely understand why that is. But I believe that in order for us to not just win a majority, but to win decisive majority.
My opinion about force the vote is that it literally would not have meant anything. But now with the full balance of time, I also don't think I see what the big fight over it was. It's like this, they kind of were right that the squad has found itself in no man's land. They're not willing to completely abandon the left and difficult positions like on Gaza, but they're also not willing to actually take on the establishment. So they find themselves in a position where they don't have any allies. They're sitting out there in no man's land getting picked off. They're not bravely making an attack. And maybe it's the charge of the Light Brigade. Maybe they would just get gunned down and fail. But they're not even trying to take on the establishment. And on the other hand, they haven't completely abandoned some of the most difficult and dangerous positions. And it's like, if you're going to hold to some of the most difficult, dangerous positions, why not go for a win? Why sit back and hope they suddenly get a change of heart? It's like this very like feckless and kind of just frankly stupid approach.
That allow us to govern. We need to be as strategic and tactical as possible. But I do believe that the Republican Party is making certain large errors right now, and that they are underestimating the public.
What are the errors?
I think that issuing a mandate to the Energy and Commerce Committee to cut $880 billion specifically, they are creating certain very specific numerical mandates in the budget cuts, and they're demanding them from very specific areas that make it nearly impossible for them to keep their promises.
$880 billion is the cut over 10 years from Medicaid, if I'm not mistaken.
From the Energy and Commerce Committee, whose jurisdiction is overwhelmingly Medicaid and Medicare, correct?
Okay. And you think that is a mistake that will come back to them? Why?
President Trump has gone on the record saying we're not going to touch Medicaid. The Republican Party is saying over and over again, we are not going to cut Medicaid. We are not going to touch Medicare. And they cannot consistently hold both the $880 billion cut promise and not touching Medicaid.
Mike Johnson, the House Speaker, said just this week, come on, there's waste, fraud, and abuse. We're going to cut it out without affecting anybody's benefits. You don't believe that?
Sure. I think you can cut a bit here and there, but it does not add to $880 billion. Just last night, Republicans were saying...
Well, if you wanted to cut a bunch of money, you know what you would do, chat? You would negotiate all drug prices, and you would get rid of Medicare Advantage. And that right there would get you hundreds of billions of dollars. But that would hurt major corporations. So that's a no.
Kind of the highest water number that they could find was $50 billion. And that is if you cast the widest net and adopt all of their definitions of what waste is, what abuse is, long-term care, children's health insurance. That's still $50 billion. And they're talking about $880 billion. I mean, the math in what they are offering as waste does not square with the price tag and the mandate that they've been given.
So what happens at the other end? Ordinary people don't lose health care, I guess, but what happens, do you believe, if that cut actually becomes reality, which is another question as to whether it ever happens?
Yeah, well, if that cut becomes reality, it's important for people to understand not just are people going to be thrown off of Medicaid, not only are Medicare recipients who receive, for example, long-term care benefits from Medicaid going to be affected, but people who are not on Medicaid are likely going to see their health insurance premiums go up, because the more people get kicked off of Medicaid, the more uninsured people there are in the United States, the more they use ERs, the more that they go directly to hospitals for care, and the cost of uninsured people is oftentimes then borne in health insurance premiums as well, and deductibles.
The erosion of Democratic Party support among working class voters has been pretty well documented. Mm-hmm. It seems to cross racial and other lines. It's real. And Democrats have talked a lot about what they maybe did wrong in the way that they spoke or the way they approached people or the way that they acted. But I want to flip that around a little bit. What do you think President Trump has done right that has appealed to traditional Democratic constituencies?
I think that some of his campaign promises, he does a good job of pairing what I would say some of the largest giveaways to the 1% and elites with very tangible policy promises.
No tax on tips.
Exactly. You take no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security. These things sound great. They also directly appeal to very specific pockets of people who tend to be working class. And that creates a permission structure, right? You toss a crumb to us and you give the farm to the big fish. And I think
that's how our society works in general. You know what I mean? Like, that's no different than the everyday practice of our political economy. So, except, you know, so people are seeing their lives improve, even though the rich are getting even more. That's always how it's been. In fact, they don't have contact with the rich. So that's really, I mean, it is what it is.
Very sophisticated in how he tailors those things together.
Some of those promises are things that Democrats themselves would like, capping interest rates on credit cards, to give one example.
I'm not going to do any of those things. I'll believe it when I see it.
Has there been some discussion among Democrats that, I mean, you're almost a little envious? He's gotten ahead of you on some of these issues.
Well, the credit card interest rate cap is my bill from 2019 with Senator Sanders. And we're having some bipartisan momentum on it. Senator Hawley is interested in working with Senator Sanders and myself. I've also have been working with some Republican colleagues. But it is a signal that Republicans understand the trouble that they are in trying to pursue their own agenda in a very naked form. They need certain fig leaves, and they are sophisticated about that. But I think what people are seeing now is that increasingly they feel lied to, right? That these were campaign promises. Maybe they'll pass, maybe they don't, maybe they won't. But there is, I think, a slingshot effect that's happening right now when people are seeing the mass layoffs in the federal workforce, the cutoffs in life-saving research, the real discussions from Elon Musk calling Medicaid recipients and people who receive SNAP and other food assistance a parasite class. And I think people are realizing that the fig leaf was the fig leaf, and it wasn't actually, you know, what's on the box wasn't what's inside.
Do you think the president has changed the subject effectively since he was elected?
I don't think he's changed the subject. I think he is who he's always been, but I think certainly some people feel that way.
I think of another aspect of this, though. Dean Phillips, one of your fellow Democratic members, was on television this past week, Fox News, as a matter of fact, and he appeared to wish Democrats acted a little more like Trump in this way. He wished that they would appeal to business people, to get smart people into government, to talk about efficiency. He seemed to wish Democrats would do what Elon Musk is doing, even if he doesn't agree with the way that Elon Musk is doing it.
I would say that instead of appealing to other politicians, we should be appealing to the American people. And if you ask the American people what they think of what Elon Musk and Doge are doing with government right now, they are vehemently opposed. The reactions right now are not just in Democratic districts, they're in Republican districts. Even Republicans in my district, they're saying, I voted for Trump. I did not vote for Elon Musk. I did not vote for this. I did not vote for mass buyouts of the federal workforce. We did not vote for the corruption of gutting NASA and then having the contracts go to SpaceX. We did not vote for...
I mean, like, honestly, the United States of America is going to suffer such catastrophic damage from this administration that it's going to put us so behind the curve of China that it's almost like maybe that's kind of a good thing. Like, it's obviously doing a lot of harm to regular Americans, and I object to that, and I think that sucks. But it's going to make America's ability to be the kind of like global hegemon permanently damaged. And I think that would be good for the U.S. I think the U.S. is chastised and contained into, instead of the world hegemon, to, you know, a strong world power. That's where America could kind of focus more on itself and kind of like take stock of itself and be like, wow, you know, our population is shrinking now and our economy is shrinking and our quality of life is going down. You know, I think that's going to set us up for long-term success in the future. So the more damage he does, you know, the more it's going to become readily apparent that we need radical change. Competitive with China is militaristic thinking. That's the way they think, man, not me. And the further they slink behind China, the less the United States will be able to commit wars abroad.
Or Starlink to start replacing critical FAA operations.
Which is the thing that's in the news. It's being discussed. Okay.
Yes. And I think that there is a very, very deep corruption at the core of this. If Elon Musk wanted to divest himself of his businesses and enter public service with his so-called business expertise, that is his prerogative. But so long as he maintains a vested financial interest in gutting the federal government, he is acting in his own self-interest and not those of the American people.
I want to underline who we're talking about here, who you think is concerned about this. There are blue state voters who voted for Donald Trump. New York was more for Trump this time than in past elections. Your district was more for Trump than in past elections. And you've had social media discussions with people who voted both for you and for Donald Trump. Do you truly believe, though, that that class of voters is paying attention and cares about the details of what you see as corruption and exactly the way that Musk is going about what he's doing for Trump?
Oh, yeah. I'm hearing it. I'm seeing it. And I represent a district that is very working class. And by that, I mean that I engage in a tremendous amount of constituent services. This is not the kind of district that is where town halls are typically filled to the absolute brim. People are working 2 jobs. They're doing these kinds of things. I am getting emails. I am getting phone calls. I had a telephone town hall last week that had really high numbers of attendance of people. And we ask, out of all of these attacks on immigration, the assault on Medicaid, the budget conversation, and Musk's access to government, which is the thing you are most concerned about? And overwhelmingly, even I'm surprised, overwhelmingly, the answer is they are concerned about this incursion in what they see as corruption into the federal government.
To what extent is immigration as an issue part of your problem with working class voters?
I mean, I guess my question would be, what does the word problem mean?
People voting for the other side and not for you.
Yeah.
Feeling that Democrats are not serious about the issue in ways that concern them.
I think that we have a problem on immigration because of the lack of progress that we've had on this issue. And as we know, Republicans weaponize that lack of progress. Of course, there was famously a bipartisan bill last year that the Republican majority in the Senate and also in the House were willing to pass. President Biden was willing to work with them on it. And Donald Trump said, do not solve this problem. As long as it is broken, then...
I mean, this is just sad. This is just sad. See, this is what happens when you get into DC and you just start listening to these like talking points and they actually don't make sense. The first half of our thing was true. The lack of progress on immigration, meaning we didn't pass any policies to like make immigration system functional in this country. After running on it again, we didn't do it. Then the part which she's not mentioning, which is the most important part, which is Joe Biden's warmongering foreign policy that was focused on ruinous sanctions on Venezuela and Cuba, causing economic crises that sent millions of economic migrants to our borders. So, you know, like that is a reality. The United States destabilizes countries in Latin America and they send millions of workers here and then we're surprised. How about we stop the militarism abroad? We lift the sanctions on Venezuela and Cuba. We treat them like good neighbors. We disagree with some of their political takes. We disagree with it. You know, the United States is more than willing to do business with Saudi Arabia. So I don't want to hear that it's about human rights or some other bullshit. Okay. Like, who gives a shit? Operate in a non-interventionist manner. And then we build immigration systems that are actually functional for our country and for social cohesion. But instead, it's like, oh, well, we stole all the Republican immigration policies and then they didn't vote for it. And it's like, well, no shit.
It will be politically beneficial for us. And so it is a problem not just for Democrats. It's a problem for the entire country that Republicans do not want to solve any sort of issue with immigration. They are completely uninterested in addressing undocumented people, in addressing a path to citizenship.
Well, they do want to address undocumented people by removing them. I mean, that's what the president is attempting now.
Even then, you see what Republicans did with the Lake and Riley Act recently in their passage with it, in that they authorized the complete gutting of due process. So now you can take a DACA recipient, a dreamer, just accuse them of a crime.
And deport them.
And however, they also understand that they don't even have the infrastructure to do that. So they're actually creating it's not even about creating a deportation pipeline. They are creating a private prison camp pipeline. So they're still creating pipelines to just increase this problem here in the United States.
Why do you think this issue did seem to be a political loser for Democrats among key groups and key constituencies, if what you say is true?
I think that a lack of a path to citizenship in the United States, the lack of addressing comprehensive immigration reform, creates a large population of undocumented people in the United States. And that is allowed to be weaponized in many ways. We have a large population of undocumented people in the United States. Overwhelmingly, it is not because they crossed the southern border of the United States. It's because they came here in a documented fashion and overstayed a visa and became undocumented. And it is the lack of ability for us to expand paths to citizenship, modernize paths to citizenship over decades that create this bubbling issue that that Republicans are allowed to weaponize.
And you have voters in places like Arizona, which is a swing state that Democrats lost, or Colorado, which is generally a blue state, saying there's a lot of chaos, there's a lot of lawlessness.
Yes.
I don't know what to do here. Who's looking out after me?
And I think when that is paired with divestment from the social safety net, when that is paired with lack of progress on minimum wage, when that is paired with rising costs of living, it sets the stage for a strong man to point any marginalized group and say it's their fault, instead of looking at the gross income inequality that we have and its actual causes in the United States. And so that, I think, is the quandary that Republicans find themselves in, because even on the debate stage, you had Vice President Vance and others trying to say that undocumented people are why we have a housing crisis in this country. And they can fulfill their entire agenda. You will never deport your way into more affordable rent. You're never going to deport your way into being able to make your mortgage meet or make your groceries more affordable. In fact, mass deportations may only make those things much more expensive, actually. And in my view, people voted to lower their groceries. People voted to try to make their lives affordable. And right now, the Trump administration is already running into roadblocks into fulfilling that promise. And they are in trouble. And that's an issue they're going to have to contend with.
I think my main problem with AOC at this point is that I'm not seeing any kind of visionary leadership or argument. I'm seeing stale Democrat talking points that put her in a position of just total unlikability. Because it's like, I don't even necessarily disagree with some of the point made. It's just like, okay, the Democrats are not offering any kind of program for any of that either. We've had 12 years of Democratic presidents. Like 3 out of the last, 5 terms have been Democrats. And they didn't raise the minimum wage. They haven't raised the minimum wage since 2007, guys. Like, it's 2025. The last minimum wage bill can vote now.
Recent dispute, if that's the right word, with Tom Homan.
Like, she says lack of progress. And it's like, well, the lack of progress happened under a Democratic trifecta. I need to hear a little bit more critique of the Democratic Party as well. Not just, the like, oh, we tried to give them everything they wanted on immigration and they didn't do it, is not going to cut it.
President's Homeland Security czar, so-called. You held an online forum, a Know Your Rights forum, that he didn't like. What were you doing? What was your goal as you saw it?
My job is to educate and act as a liaison of critical information to my constituents. And I was informing all of my constituents of their constitutional protections, and in particular, their constitutional protections against illegal search and seizure in the United States.
Homan was upset, I suppose, because he felt that you were giving advice to people who were here illegally.
Mm-hmm.
Were you?
I was giving advice to all of my constituents.
He said he was going to report you, or even that he did reach out to the Department of Justice.
Dantis, thanks for the
Have
1,000.
you heard from the Department of Justice?
I have not, and I intend on reaching out to the Department of Justice to inquire.
Really? What would your question be for the Department of Justice?
Well, there is a member of the Trump administration who is threatening and seeks to open an inquiry, and are you going to do it?
What would you learn? What do you hope to learn from that exchange?
I think it's important to know where this administration stands and if they intend on using political intimidation to silence their critics.
The interim U.S. attorney here in Washington, D.C., where we are, Ed Martin, has several times said he has reached out to specific Democratic lawmakers, such as Chuck Schumer, the Senate Democratic leader, to ask for clarification about various remarks that he regarded as threatening. I'm interested if you or your fellow Democrats are at all feeling intimidated or silenced or anything.
I'm not. I think it's important to call this administration's bluff. I think that this is what authoritarians do. I think this is what kleptocracies do. I believe that this is what corrupt administrations do. They rely on the illusion of power, on the suggestion of coercion in order to try to get people to comply in advance. And I think that one of our largest responsibilities is to not comply in advance. If they want to do these things, they can go ahead and do them and let the American people see what they intend to do.
Do you think there is a real risk of lawmakers?
When they do it, then what? What if they do coerce you?
Is being investigated, charged, arrested?
Potentially. I mean, we see that this administration is certainly wielding that threat, and we will have to see if they intend on carrying out their threats. If they are to be believed for what they are publicly suggesting, then the answer would be yes. But we will only find out if we call their bluff.
Do you think other Democrats are watching their words?
I think it's certainly possible, but I'm not sure. I mean, I cannot think of or point to any individuals who have said that. I do think that there are Democratic members of Congress who are preparing for that possibility.
How do they prepare?
I think they look to the possibility of litigation. I think they're saying, do we have the best teams possible in order to carry out our work?
Some Republican, or many perhaps, will be watching this, listening to this, and thinking, wait a minute, actually, you're the ones who are prosecuting us. You were the guys who are weaponizing the Justice Department. How would you respond to somebody who may be thinking that?
In what way? In what way? Is the very presence
Putting Trump on trial would be their example, I suppose.
Yes. I mean, here's the deal. In the United States, there is a jury where we are judged by our peers, and he was found guilty in court on 34 felony charges. If people want to say it was weaponized, I mean, it is hard-pressed to say that there's a partisan argument for that. You have Senator Menendez, famously.
We down here in Jackson, Mississippi, have filed an indictment for AOC because she is a criminal communist sympathizer, and we have got down 12 good old boys down in the jury, and we have convicted her of all charges. And as she said, there's no way to do a weaponization as long as a jury of Americans votes to convict somebody. There's no way that can be weaponized. What the fuck are you talking about? What the fuck are you talking about? This is a terrible argument. Just say he was convicted of a crime according to due process of law, and they are making him above the law, and they don't have any legal arguments other than he's the king, and I don't believe in having a king. Make political arguments that don't suck.
Democratic senator from New Jersey. Convicted, yeah.
And to 11 years in prison, I believe. You know, we see over and over again that there has historically been an independent Justice Department whose job it is to be separate and apart from the presidency and the executive branch. Just because someone was held to an equal standard of the law does not mean that the Justice Department was weaponized. However, what is weaponization is that same previously independent Department of Justice.
This is what's like crazy is it's like you're trying to defend an institution that no longer exists. Joe Biden's Department of Justice is gone. Donald Trump, when he says it was weaponized, now that he's in power, handed the keys by Joe Biden, who said, "Welcome home, Donald." They're going to weaponize it now. So you need to be like, the reality is Donald Trump has destroyed our institutions. First he's corrupted it, and now he plans to use it. And that's why we need radical change. I don't know like what the fucking political strategy even is here. Is it to say that you should trust the institutions right before they start like arresting people like yourself? Like, what are you talking about?
And the U.S. Attorney's Office now turning around saying, we are not the American people's lawyers anymore.
I honestly don't even hate AOC. I just think that she's not, this just isn't it. I don't know what to say. This just sucks. Bad advice.
President's lawyers. And that is a dramatic shift. That is a dramatic change in the structure of our justice system.
It seems clear you would want to make a case then that this is a corrupt administration that's abusing power. Does the Democratic Party have some challenge in making that case, though, because of certain things that go on in the Democratic Party, or even in your state of New York, or your city of New York, where your mayor is Eric Adams?
Yeah.
Who was indicted until recently, just for starters.
Well, you know, I think it is important that we be not hypocritical in that. I've called for Mayor Eric Adams, to resign or be removed if he refuses to do so. And this is what equal treatment in the eyes of the law means. It's that if you are a Democrat, if you are a Republican, we should both be held to the same standards. In fact, it's not even about the absence of corruption. It's the willingness to take corruption to account, to hold it to account, independent of one's party affiliation. And in Mayor Adams's case, what I think is transpiring is that, and again, what we saw coming out of the Southern District of New York, also in recent resignation.
What has happened to her speaking style? She's become so much more circuitous and like using so much more passive language we have seen coming out of. It's like she listened to Kamala Harris and was like, "Yes, queen." Like, what happened? What the fuck happened to AOC? Is she okay? This is like the worst interview I've ever seen her do.
And the letters that were made public is that there was
circuitous, going around in circles, serpentine, not going directly to the point, long-winded, verbose.
A pretty explicit quid pro quo arrangement that these attorneys saw in Mayor Adams approaching the Trump administration, saying, "Hey, you let me off the hook, and I will exchange public policy implementation," which is just as damning not only for Eric Adams it's also equally damning in terms of corruption of the Trump administration.
Is there another problem Democrats face because you would like government to work? And there's a broad perception, including among many liberals and progressives, that government doesn't work very well. It takes forever to build something in this country, to give a very obvious example. We do have a couple million federal workers, and a lot of people aren't sure how those people really touch their lives or do anything for them. Do you think government really isn't working well enough?
I think it's not just, it is about our society writ large is completely slanted so that the gains that we have go to the wealthy, go to the corporate class, go to the largest corporations in America who pay the least in taxes, and everyday working people who pay much higher percentages of their income in taxes, seeing the least benefit in society. And that is a governance problem. It is a social problem. It is an economy-wide problem. And I think the boiling rage that exists at this sense of injustice that you are...
Okay, she's bringing it back. Okay, let's go. We've got the boiling rage that you are working two jobs. You are scared to go to the doctor because you don't think that you'll be even able to afford a blood test, that you're working tirelessly and you're not even making... For a ceasefire?
$8-9 an hour in a lot of places in this country. I think that is what we consistently see. And then on top of it, everything feels increasingly like a scam. Not only are grocery prices going up, but it's like everything has a fee and a surcharge. And I think that anger is put out at government. It is put out at a lot of different areas.
I honest to God hate this shit. Honest to God, this is pundit brain. This is what I hate. Whenever I see somebody infected with this in politics, I know they're going nowhere. Her job she should just be an avatar of the anger and be like, people are pissed off because they can't afford to live. And nothing Trump is doing is going to affect that. He's blaming immigrants so that he can rob the federal government. Make some arguments that are tight. Everything is so long-winded. It's like it's like she never thought about it before. It's like somebody giving a book report without reading the book.
Areas.
Yeah, and meandering.
In terms of efficiency, our government can be tremendously efficient for the wealthy, but inefficient at times in delivering things for working people. That is not the same thing as justifying cutting the very few things that people actually interface with, going after the post office, going after the VA, going after Medicaid and Medicare. Those are two entirely different propositions.
Would you like a president to go in and break some china and mess things up, even if you don't like the way this president is trying to do that?
I think when we talk about breaking things, messing things up,
if you wanted to do this you would say the one thing that Donald Trump is exposing is that the American people have lost faith in their government. And there are good reasons for that. The problem is that the fox is now in charge of protecting the hen house. Before we had a problem before the problem was excessive corruption. Now we have the corrupt guys directly making deals for their own benefit. He is turning every dysfunction up to 11 as opposed to fixing them. But the American people are so frustrated, they're willing to give him a shot because the Democrats told them to shut the fuck up and everything is fine. And that was wrong. But she's decided that this is AOC's downfall in a nutshell, which is she's been convinced somehow that the best bet is to defend the Democratic Party's failures while at the same time trying to message her own message, but do so in a way that doesn't step on the toes of other Democrats. And it's you can't do that and also win over the loyalty and allegiance of regular people. You have to speak cleanly. You have to speak plain spokenly. You have to speak directly, or else you will fail.
I mean, to the FAA, no. to the NIH? No. To our ability to contain Ebola before it gets on a plane and comes into the United States? No. I don't want someone being reckless with the most critical infrastructure. I don't want someone being reckless, abandoning experimental medical devices that are implanted in everyday Americans who have no other recourse because their disease is so far progressed. I actually don't want someone taking a wrecking ball to someone's chemotherapy to just see what happens. Now, I do think that we can examine certain things like Medicare Advantage that I think is a scam, that in the name of so-called efficiency, ironically enough, we have handed over huge amounts of healthcare disbursements to private insurers who are pocketing it and giving less coverage to the people who receive this than ever before. Sure, yeah, let's go after that. But I don't think we just destroy everything that we have worked so hard for as a country to become innovative, to become just, to have some of the only lifelines that people have in this country to a roof over their head or food in their children's stomach. No, I don't think that we gamble with that.
That was fucking dog shit. That was terrible. It's not, again, and it's not because I dislike AOC. It's just she has the worst political advice. And at a certain point, like, she's been in politics for a while. How are you worse at this than you were when you just got in 2018? How are you, like, worse at this?
Representative Ocasio-Cortez, thanks so much for coming by.
Okay, Chad. Yeah. I'm tired. Today was a bad day. I'm too tired. I'm gonna go. I love you all. Hope you have a good rest of your Sunday. And we'll be back here tomorrow. We're gonna go over the Destiny video, the new Destiny video tomorrow. Also, if you wanted me to watch a video or something, go in the Discord. I have this section called the news content and suggestion section where you can like, it's a channel where you could just link me shit and I'll check it out. All right, everybody. I'll see you tomorrow. Have the good rest of your weekend. Ugh.
All victims of oppression, for the tyrants fear your might. Don't cling so hard to your possessions, for you have nothing if you have no rights. So come, brothers and sisters, for the struggle carries on. Listening to Mike from PA unites the world in song. So comrades, come and rally, for this is the time and place. Join the Central Committee and unite the human race. Break down the billionaire system. Bring down the bourgeoisie.
Oh, sorry.
To see the end of capitalism, we must set Luigi free. Demand that health care be provided, as well as housing and food security. We'll build high-speed rails and revolutions with heads of billionaires and solidarity. So come, brothers and sisters, through this struggle we'll carry on. Our gifts up to Central Committee. is one step closer to righting the wrong.